Chapter 835. A bright red crack appeared on the floor of the office, not on Han Dong's body. Commander Xiaoya, don't be angry. I'm just asking for your opinion. Xiaoya was still angry at Han Dong for making such a dangerous decision on his own. Unexpectedly, not only did Han Dong not reflect on his dangerous actions in Perugia, but he also wanted to participate in the upcoming attack. The expeditionary army only estimated the other party's attack method. The specific time, location, number of troops, and how many atavistic creatures would participate in the battle were still unknown. The difficulty and danger of the battle were far higher than the siege of Perugia. Xiaoya was so angry that she almost whipped Han Dong, but she still couldn't bear to do so. Of course, Han Dong also knew the problem. The reason why he was in a hurry to make such a request was that he learned from Count about the important information of land deed devouring, which forced Han Dong to change his plan at the last minute. Han Dong wanted to expand his land deed area by using the low to mid-level battles that broke out in the early stages. In this way, he would be able to store more useful things in the later stages of the expedition. Xiaoya's jade-like foot gently stepped on Han Dong's thigh, and her finger made a 1 sign. Reason. One reason, no more. If you can't convince me, don't mention this matter again. I've personally examined your body and know that you're different. But don't underestimate this expedition. If something happens to you, it will be a great loss to the expeditionary army and the Holy City. Han Dong could see that Commander Xiaoya was more concerned about him after the series of experiences some time ago. However, Han Dong had to seize the opportunity of the battle that happened in the early stages of the expedition. If I cooperate with Senior Lucius, I can directly face a lord like in Perugia. I can use my perception to lock onto the location of the atavistic body in advance. I will try my best to follow behind the other combatants as an assistant during the battle to minimize the danger. All kinds of reasons emerged in Han Dong's mind, but they all had the possibility of being refuted. Moreover, Commander Xiaoya was angry, so the reason had to be 120% persuasive. It was unknown why. Just as Han Dong was thinking of a reason that could not be denied, the strange image of Demps hooking his finger suddenly flashed in his mind, as if he was hinting at something. Phew, Han Dong took a deep breath. If Commander Xiaoya allows me to participate in this battle, I'm willing to be at your beck and call. He changed his strategy. He changed to another method of persuasion. Little brother Dempus had once been an apprentice knight and was able to do as he pleased in the academy because of this. Since Captain Xiaoya was interested in him, Han Dong decided to magnify this interest as much as possible and even use it as a bargaining chip in exchange for some privileges. Although Han Dong didn't want to do this, he didn't have any reaction even when the jade foot stepped on his body. But for the sake of development and the cause of human freedom, Han Dong was willing to give up some things. At most, he would stay in the director's office to provide some massage services and be whipped a few times. A man should know when to yield and when not to yield. Moreover, the other party was a supreme figure in the sacred city. The leader was also a duke of the royal family. How many people in the sacred city could be whipped? For a moment, Commander Xiaoya's anger was suppressed. Be at your beck and call. Unfortunately, you're not a member of the Scarlet Knight. Okay, there must be a reason why you're so eager to participate in the battle. I won't pry into some of your secrets, I just want to confirm one thing. What's the purpose of you participating in the battle? Most of it is for myself, and a small part of it is for the great expedition to achieve a stage victory. You're quite honest. Let me guess, do you have an ability to absorb fiends or an ability related to the land deed? Commander Xiaoya, don't guess. If you keep guessing like this, there will be nothing left. I promise, when the time is right, I will tell you everything frankly. At this moment, a warm finger fell between Han Dong's lip. I'm just guessing. Needless to say, You don't have to confess anything. Everyone has their own privacy, including me. Some things are not good to confess. You're with Commander Hugo, so you should know this very well. Since Commander Hugo and the Council have proven your humanity, at the night conference, there is nothing to say. Be at my beck and call, you said it yourself, so I won't be polite. Go take a shower in the bathroom next door. Commander, what are you doing? I originally thought that the Hall family's Holy Sword bloodline was just a rare bloodline, but in fact, it's much rarer than I expected. The night before I left the city, I drank too much and couldn't test it clearly. Since you've agreed, I'll take advantage of the time before the battle to examine your body carefully. At this time, the buttons on Han Dong's clothes had all been unbuttoned by his toes. Since he promised something, he naturally had to do it. Thinking of this, Han Dong strode to the bathroom with his head held high. Lake Trasimeno, the fourth largest lake in Italos, the town and the famous Langshanning Glargo Castle were located on the lakeside. When the eternal night came, the humans on the lakeside and within 5 kilometers of the surrounding area were immediately enslaved. Overnight, they created a strange toad statue and transported it to the center of the lake. At the same time, their buildings were all moved to the bottom of the lake. If one had to compare the quietest area in the central part of Italos, it would have to be Lake Trasimeno. Even under the eternal night, once you got close to the lake, you wouldn't hear any noise. In other words, any living thing that dared to make a sound in this area would become a part of the quietness. On the calm surface of the lake, there wasn't a single flaw to be found. At this time, the hybrid demon wearing antler ornaments quickly arrived. He knelt on the shore, using his identity as a messenger and the name of his lord to explain his intentions. Suddenly, a wave of fear instantly filled the Yimo's heart like a river breaking through a dam. On the surface of the quiet lake, a giant creature suddenly jumped up. It was a giant toad about the size of a lake. It didn't give the hybrid demon any chance to resist and swallowed him in one gulp. As the last ripples on the surface of the lake dissipated, a deathly silence descended once again. In the blink of an eye, the messenger landed in the center of a city. A wet sound came from the front. This sound instantly drenched the hybrid demon with antlers. There were even some tadpoles that drilled in and out of his pores. Little guy, the news of your swamp spread too slowly. The 2 lords of the Shadow Manor and the Green Field have already accepted my invitation and came to Toad City. That mushroom of yours, let him come over as well. Don't think that group of humans are too stupid. In my eyes, humans are just a group of inferior races. Their brains are still worthy of respect. I have a better plan here. Chapter 836. Dean's Office. A young man was lying on the bed in the next room. He looked like he had nothing to live for. He seemed to have suffered serious destruction in his body and mind, especially in his body. Commander Xiaoya was holding a tube of blood that she had painstakingly sucked out of Han Dong's body. It contained dense blood cells and was enough to test the bloodline attribute contained in it. There was no need for testing equipment. Commander Xiaoya herself was an extremely precise blood detector. She directly drank the blood in the test tube. In the blink of an eye, Commander Xiaoya's consciousness came to the depths of an ancient tomb. She used the blood to search around the ancient tomb. She saw all kinds of symbols on the stone tablets that touched the mythical realm. The inherited bloodline of a mythical being? The Hall family actually had such an opportunity, however. Everything made sense now. Because the Hall family couldn't bear and completely control such a noble mythical bloodline, they mistook it for a curse that forced their family to kill evil beings for generations to live. Not only could Nicholas bear this bloodline, but he also sucked out all the blood in the tomb of the other family. This body is really amazing. Thinking of this, Commander Xiaoya reached out to touch the young man on the bed. The latter didn't have any reaction. He didn't even blink. The 2 of them had been alone for an entire day. Just as Commander Xiaya was about to continue playing, a message directly from the Demon King's castle made her expression change. The terrain has changed? Xiaya quickly went to the window and looked at the eternal night outside. The first feeling she had was tranquility. In Xiaya's experience of leaving the city dozens of times, the outside of the city shouldn't be so quiet. Even in the eternal night area where there were no hybrid demons, the rocks exposed to the eternal night for a long time would rub against each other. The trees would also make the sound of suction cups moving. There would also be strange whispers under the ground. However, it was unusually quiet outside the window. It was the same even when Xiaya opened the window. At the same time, according to the information, the expeditionary army set off from Perugia and advanced along Strata Avenue in the north. They should have avoided the forest and advanced on the relatively flat and wide plains. However, in front of them, the expeditionary army stepped into a wetland full of shrubs and plants with a high water content. This also greatly limited the marching speed of the army. Commander Xiaya took out a map from the expedition team that had passed by this area a year and a half ago. Strange, in just a year and a half, this place has changed so much? Does it cover the entire area? At this moment, Han Dong, who had changed his clothes, also came to the window and stared at the unusually quiet wetland area. Commander Xia, can expedition eyes see the edge of this wetland? Compared to the normal evernight environment, the range of vision is limited to 50%. The scale of the wetlands was beyond imagination. Based on the available intelligence, the wetlands may cover more than 40% of the central region of Italos. The Great Demon General suspects that the Hybrid Demon Alliance will launch a surprise attack on us in this region. Moreover, during the several hours of marching on the wetland, some of the knights showed signs of excessive humidity and were sent to the hospital for examination and treatment. Most of the troops will be stationed in the wetlands for a period of time to investigate the wetlands. Captain Xia, what's the situation with the excessive humidity knight? Can I have a look? Follow me. Currently, there were 3 knights who were not in good condition and were sent to the hospital. The 3 of them were perceptive people, their bodies were weak, and their levels were lower than the 5th grade knight. Their bodies were shrouded in holy light and sent directly to the isolation room. It was also because of Commander Xia's permission that Han Dong was able to have direct contact with the patients. Currently, the blood exchange treatment was completed. The edema and some blisters also disappeared one after another. The knights returned to their normal state. However, the blood that was exchanged contained something terrifying. What is this? In just a few seconds, a large number of tadpole-like life forms appeared in a tank of blood that was exchanged. In the absence of physical restrictions, these life forms were wildly multiplying and growing. Moreover, as the number of tadpoles increased, the blood became thinner and thinner, slowly turning into a pool of clear water. Until, croak, a toad suddenly jumped out and was immediately annihilated by a wisp of black sand released by Han Dong. Han Dong touched his chin with one hand and said lightly, "After the nutrients in the blood are exhausted, the reproduction and growth will stop." Commander Xia, can I take some samples? Yes. What do you think? At first glance, it's best to let some knights with poor physical fitness and low level not explore this wetland again. How to effectively resist the wetland effect still needs to be studied. Okay, you go back to your team. The hospital may be busy. I will call you when I need you. Before Han Dong left, he whispered in Commander Xia's ear, "The possibility of the hybrid demons launching a surprise attack in this area is very high. If there is a chance, I will sign up directly." Well, be careful. If there is a chance, cooperate with Lucius. Okay. Han Dong returned to the team with the test tube, and before Mia could pounce on him, he immediately went to find another man. "Demps, come with me. I got a sample of the wetland symptoms in the hospital. I need to confirm it." In the blink of an eye, the two secretly teleported to the backyard of the Scarlet Manor. In order to ensure species diversity, Han Dong transformed the backyard area into a giant artificial lake. The inside was filled with conches and seawater, allowing the murlocs under his control to live here. Currently, an old man with an ugly face, bulging eyeballs, and a stacked chin was sitting leisurely by the river fishing. Dinok's right count, the highest manager of Port Ostia under Han Dong's command. Like Scarlet Count, he was a mature hybrid demon. However, he was excessively old. As mentioned before, the port was just a deep-sea nursing home. Some excessively old or seriously injured deep-sea creatures stayed in the port and spent the rest of their lives through the conch dream. Count Wright, who was seriously old, might not even be able to defeat a newborn hybrid demon. However, because of his old age, he knew a lot about the deep sea. "Sir Messenger, you are here. Count Wright, I want to ask you something. Have you seen this creature?" Han Dong handed over the test tube. Count Wright stared at the strange tadpoles swimming in it and thought for a while. "This is a Bufo's larva?" Chapter 837. Bufo's larvae? When Count Wright gave this term, he said, Demps immediately stepped forward and reached out to pick up one of the tadpoles. Pinching it with his sixth finger, the little thing was so scared that its whole body trembled. It was impossible and didn't dare to get into his body. Demps took out a needle from somewhere and poked the tadpole's abdomen. Hiss! A strange sound came out. The circular mouth hidden in the tadpole's body was exposed. The outer layer was circular, and the inner layer was triangular. After doing all this, Demps snapped his fingers and burned the tadpoles. "It does have the characteristics of a Bufo. It seems that it's right. This strange area that the expeditionary army passed through is related to the Bufo." "Bufo? The old king?" Dempus nodded. "Yes, a rather special and mysterious middle king of the old era. It's just that this wetland has a big problem. I can't even figure out how the wetland was formed." "What do you mean?" "Because of Mother's long-legged wooden house, I often travel with it. I happened to be here 8 months ago. At that time, this was still a normal plain area, and there were even some hybrid demon villages. Even if there was a regional coverage, it wouldn't reach such a huge range. How did it do it?" At this moment, Duke Wright, who was fishing on the side, interrupted, "Sir Messenger, if you come to the Bufo's territory, it's actually very easy. Bufo has a connection with the great lord of the deep sea. With your identity as a messenger, you should be able to call out the master of this territory. As for the regional problem you mentioned, it may be related to the treasure in the Bufo's hands. Bufo itself is an old king who likes to invade. As long as there is an area with the Toad God statue, it will show certain wetland characteristics." "Well, very interesting information. Thank you, Count Wright. Sir Messenger, you're too polite. If there is a toad causing trouble for you, we merepeople are also willing to fight. Although most of us are old or injured, we can still fight in a wet environment." "No need. I'll look for you when I really encounter something related to the sea." "That's right, Count Wright. After a period of time, I will arrange for you to go to the laboratory and try to inject youthful vitality into you or heal some of the injuries from the past." "Thank you, Lord Envoy." Since they had obtained the information they wanted, Han Dong and Demps returned. At this moment, the camp had already been set up, and the mechanical god assistants had even built a copper wall at the border of the camp that could effectively block the invasion of moisture. The Wetland Reconnaissance Recruitment Order had also been sent out to all 4 armies. In small teams, they began to investigate this strange wetland. The scout must have the ability not to be affected by moisture. Corresponding rewards will be given according to the investigation information brought back. They had to investigate the reason for the formation of the wetlands, the hidden dangers, and the movements of the hybrid demons behind the scenes before the expeditionary army dared to continue marching forward. If they were ambushed, in addition to the restrictions of the rules, the captains would not be able to take action. The ambush would result in a large number of casualties. Let's go. Let's go sign up. Shouldn't the elite knights of the 1st and 2nd Corps be the ones to do this? I heard that many knights have already been invaded by the moisture and their bodies are full of tadpoles. That's disgusting. Mia had a look of reluctance. Then Mia, you stay here. The rest of you follow me. The other members of the team were all eager to try, especially Abel. Demps and Han Dong were the main contributors in the siege of Perugia City. Abel, who had stayed in the army, could not wait any longer. Since there was a chance to fight, he had to seize it. Only by adapting to the rhythm of the battle outside the city would they be able to perform better in the subsequent large-scale battles. Let's go. Abel's ears perked up, and he couldn't wait any longer. Wenli also tied her fiery red hair into a ponytail and brought her blacksmith hammer, looking eager to give it a try. Mia saw that the situation was not right and quickly followed. Come on. I'm just worried. Just like that, the team arrived at the Demon King's castle. Compared to the siege, there were much fewer scouts signing up this time. Rumors of the wetland infection had spread in the army. Due to the unknown moisture infection and unknown toad larvae multiplying in the body. In a situation where the source of infection and the characteristics of the wetland were unknown, most of the knights chose to wait and see. In the hall, other than the applicants gathered here, there was also a group of scarlet doctors in white coat. The doctors had a large number of syringes in their suitcases, filled with freshly cultivated tadpole liquid. To ensure that nothing went wrong, they had to inject the liquid directly into the scout's body. Only knights who could resist the wetland effect with their own bodies could participate in this scouting operation that was full of unknowns. Warren Nicholas 100% rejection, no parasitic reaction, approved. Demps Martin 70% rejection, can use his own mana to remove the parasites, approved. Mia Semenovich 80% rejection, can use insect autophagy to remove the parasites, approved. Abel Lane 100% rejection, dragon bloodline immune to the wetland effect, approved. Just as it was the last blacksmith, Wenli's turn, there was a problem. Knight Wenli, can you please relax a little? Three curved syringes were scattered all over the ground, unable to pierce Wenli's body to complete the test. Even if Wenli was completely relaxed, the needles could not pierce her skin. Just as the doctors changed their strategy and prepared to let Wenli take the tadpole liquid directly, Han Dong thought of something and suddenly stepped forward, reaching out his hand and putting it on Wenli's shoulder. Wenli, this matter might not be suitable for you. Go to the backup team and help with blacksmithing. Okay. He stared at Wenli, who left in disappointment. Mia asked, why did you suddenly ask Sister Wenli to give up here? Sister Wenli's strength is the strongest among us. She might be able to help at a critical moment. I suddenly thought of a problem. It's because Wenli's muscles far exceed the limit of a knight that the consequences would be unimaginable if she were to be deeply parasitized. Also, you should have noticed a detail. The reason why Wenli's muscles can't be pierced by the needles is not because she can't relax. It's because the self-protective properties of her muscles don't allow her to completely relax. The muscles automatically detected the danger and stopped the injection of the tadpole liquid. That's it, the four of us are enough. The main goal this time is to search for the toad idol. Once we find it, we can confirm the problem with the wetland. If possible, I will start a war. Chapter 838. There were a total of 37 wetland search teams. At the same time, the special unit, Wolves of Evernight, would also participate. This special unit, which had undergone strict training and screening, was used to moving in the dark, had superior movement speed, and had better physical fitness and detection abilities than the Expeditionary Army's average, would be the search center in this operation. The seemingly scattered search teams would be connected by the pack of wolves. The search of the wetland would not spread randomly in the form of dot. Instead, it would be like a closely connected spider web that gradually covered the wetland area. Among the pack of wolves, most of them were beast knights from the Behemoth Knight. Abel naturally knew them. When they learned that Abel would participate in this search operation, many people's attention was focused on him. They must secretly pay more attention to this future commander. If anything happened to Abel, and they returned safely to the city, Commander Kai Meng would probably slap them to death. Abel asked with a look of surprise, "What? Toad Idol? Nicholas, have you figured out the origin of the wetland?" "Not yet. I just received some reliable information in advance. I have to find the idol to confirm it. Let's go. Let's get ready to go." When the crow carriage was let out, it also attracted many people's attention. When the black carriage moved, it was like a crow that quickly flew into the wetland. Even the sound of the horses' hooves and the wheels of the carriages had been silenced. The silent dark crows quietly moved forward in the wetlands, searching for the secrets of this place. Just as they were about to leave the garrison, drip, 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 the sound of dripping water came from the carriage. Such a strange sound directly made Abel, who was highly focused, feel his hair stand on end. His sharp beast claws popped out from his fingertips. He thought that the moisture had invaded the carriage. "Abel, don't be nervous. This search requires the help of external aid." It was like a kind of rotten fish smell filled with rubber shoes that overflowed the carriage. For a moment, everyone's thoughts were drawn back to the previous port mission. The Murloc aristocrat, Count de Nox Wright, appeared. The swollen, fat, and wrinkled body sat down next to Han Dong. Mia quickly pinched her nose and avoided it. Although Han Dong didn't ask for the deep-sea nursing home's help in the battle, the deep-sea nursing home didn't have much of a choice. But in terms of the exploration of the wetlands, this old fishman must know more than anyone else, which could effectively increase the efficiency of the search. "Isn't that the Murloc hybrid demon in the harbor?" Abel and Mia were both surprised. He also quickly recalled the strange journey at the port. The fact that everyone could suddenly end their investigation mission and return safely was definitely related to Han Dong. Han Dong put a finger to his lips and replied softly, "That's right. Life in Port Ostia isn't easy, so I secretly took in these fishmen. You must never tell anyone else about this." Who would have thought that just as Count Wright entered the carriage for the first time as an assistant, he immediately pressed his face against the car window and stared at the wetlands outside. "Right, Count, what's wrong?" Gurgle gurgle. Count Wright was like bubbling in a smelly ditch before he spoke. Rotten internal organs and the smell of Oreos leaked out of Count Wright's mouth, and a few black, oily dead fish fell to the ground. "It's a bit strange. I was instructed by the deep sea to go to the Bufos territory more than 100 years ago. It's not like this. Can I go down and take a look?" Han Dong immediately called for Midnight to stop running. Count Wright looked old and clumsy. His every move was slow, giving people the feeling that he could die of old age at any time. Although he looked silly, he was actually quite smart. Before getting off the carriage, he pulled out a fisherman's cloak from his body and covered his body, completely concealing the aura of the hybrid demon. He looked like a down-and-out fisherman, when his thick feet with webbed structures landed on the wet grass. Plop plop, a school of fish appeared around Count Wright. The fish desperately flapped their bodies and jumped into the nearby puddle area. However, such behavior hastened their deaths. Not long after, the surface of the puddle within a few dozen meters was full of dead fish. Sure enough, this wetland gives me a very strange feeling. There is something else mixed in here. What caused the fish to die is a kind of fungus mixed in the water. The toad idol may just be the appearance of expanding the wetland. There are more dangerous things hidden here. To be safe, I suggest that Sir return to your human army first and wait for others to explore. Exploring this wetland rashly may cause trouble. Small-scale conflicts will not be protected by the world rules. Han Dong and the others also wrapped their bodies in airtight clothes and stepped off the carriage to hide their aura. Fungus. Just as Han Dong squatted in front of a puddle, trying to find the source of the plague, the little magic eye on his forehead felt a burning sensation. Han Dong suddenly looked up and looked at the bushes in the distance. Why do I feel that the plants in the distance are slowly approaching us? All perception seems to be suppressed by the thick moisture. I didn't notice it at all at first. At this moment, the horse, Midnight, neighed as if it had sensed something, further confirming Han Dong's thoughts. Demps, you protect the horse. Leave this to us. Okay. Demps gently stepped forward and sat cross-legged on the top of the carriage, looking very much like an actor watching a play. What is coming? Why can't I feel it? Mia's back had grown 4 spider legs in advance, and a large number of compound eyes were squeezed out of her forehead, but she could not detect anything. Abel also frowned. His beast perception also did not work, and he did not smell anything unusual. The wetlands' restriction on perception is much greater than expected. It's even several times stronger than the suppression in Perugia. What's the reason? Even the function of the little magic eye is suppressed to less than 20%. If the perception restriction is really so great, the other exploration teams may also encounter big trouble. Just as Han Dong thought for a moment and looked up again, they had been surrounded. A large number of bushes had appeared 50 meters away. The vines wrapped around the trunks were like the tentacles of these bushes, strangely pulling and even beginning to entangle with each other. Immediately after, more and more vines entangled together, forming a closed bush net that completely isolated the area. They no longer hid their breath. On the surface of the bloated, fat tree trunk that was full of suction cups, twisted and hollow faces were reflected. A kind of evil creature covered in bark and vines drilled out from the trunks, and there were as many as a dozen of them. They had all reached the level of newborn body, hybrid demon. The vines that built their bodies could be long or short, piercing and sucking individuals, or turning into a hammer to directly crush individuals, or forming a net to capture them alive, and some even had fatal venom. Count Wright, you go back first. Leave the battle to us. Since I'm already out, I'll help a group of adults. The humidity here is just enough to support my old bones. It would be better if there was a Kong. These things are not Bufo's subordinates, and I won't expose my identity. I'm also very curious about what's going on with this wetland. Just as Han Dong handed a conch to the Murloc Count, a bunch of thorn-like vines had already shot out. It shot through Count Wright's fat body, and some stinky fish bones, shells, and leather scattered. Huff! Ha! He allowed the vines to pierce through his abdomen. Count Wright didn't care about this injury at all, and with a look of enjoyment, he sucked on the conch in his hand the next second. The arm covered in fish scales grabbed the vines and pulled with brute force. The hybrid demon that launched an attack in the distance was directly pulled in front of Count Wright. At this moment, Count Wright had turned into the strongest Murloc in the port area. He swallowed the bush hybrid demon in one gulp as an appetizer vegetable salad. Chapter 839. Deep Ones. These terrifying creatures living in the sea seem to have the general name, Deep Ones. If you want to classify them, you can write a classified book that fills an entire small library. There are many different categories of basic species, deep ones, dream level, bloodline, and so on. Different deep ones have different dream connections with the great ones, and the changes that can happen to the body and the ability level are also different. Han Dong, as the lowest deep-sea messenger, controls the port of Ostia that can't even be arranged with a land deed, commonly known as the Ocean Nursing Home. However, in this extremely low nursing home, there are a few high-level deep ones who have fought for the great ones. because of irreparable injuries, they can't continue to fight and stay in the nursing home for the rest of their lives. Dennox Wright, his title of Earl was not self-proclaimed. Instead, he had participated in various naval battles for the Great Existence when he was young. His military exploits were illustrious, coupled with the fact that he had a small amount of the Great Existence's direct bloodline. He was granted the title of Earl. Wright's former identity in the deep sea is like Scarlet Count's identity as a subordinate of the blood god, Dream Reality. Although Count Wright has irreparable injuries and his body is seriously aging, his ability to dream has never weakened. In the dream, he can return to his peak state. By wearing the conch breathing device, combined with a high-level deep-sea secret technique, he can achieve dream reality, temporarily introducing himself in the dream into reality. The introduction of reality will consume the essence in the conch. Once it is consumed, Count Wright will also return to his old state. However, this perfect conch can last for an hour. Just now, he was an old, fat, and stinky old fisherman. In the blink of an eye, he has turned into a Murloc Deep One with a body size of more than 4 meters. Black crystal-like fins are on his back. Pieces of dark scales that can withstand the pressure of thousands of meters of deep sea are attached to every part of his body. Hiss, 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 the sound of heavy breathing came through the conch. The conch breathing device on the face has 5 thick tentacles tightly wrapped around the head to ensure that the breathing device can be stabilized during battle. His head is wearing a golden crown with the Murloc priest. His size, strength, and agility had all reached Wright's best state when he was young. He grabbed the shrubbery-type hybrid demon that was attacking him. He didn't allow it to struggle at all. His breathing device cooperated with the action of opening his mouth, and several slippery tentacles grew out of it, pulling it into his mouth. When this pitiful shrubby mantis demon was swallowed, it was as if it had fallen into a cave full of acid and bones at the bottom of the sea. However, the most special one was Dennox Wright's domain. Under the fishman posture, within 5 meters of where Wright stood, the ground turned into a pool of seawater. There were all kinds of strange fish swimming in the sea. Occasionally, the fins of sharks would appear, and there were even some terrifying shadows of the deep sea. The surface of the sea would move with Wright. It was like a domain, but also like a portal to the deep sea. Due to the adaptability of the environment, the overall strength emitted was about 1.5 Scarlet Count. The aura was terrifyingly strong. When such a fishman posture was exposed, Scarlet Count, who was hiding in Han Dong's body, was dumbfounded. He couldn't help but raise his fingers to calculate his current position. Suddenly, he had a midlife crisis feeling. On the other hand, Han Dong was ecstatic. I really picked up a treasure. I didn't expect there to be such a veteran in the nursing home. At this moment, Demps, who was in charge of guarding the carriage, was also interested. The 6th finger cut open the different space, grabbed a spear inlaid with shells and seaweed hanging from it, and threw it to Count Wright. This is the weapon of the Deep Sea Royal Family. Thank you very much. The moment Count Wright grabbed the spear, his thoughts seemed to return to his youth, when he followed the Deep Sea Army to battle. Count Wright, who had long lost his fighting spirit and returned to the field, had retired. This time, he just wanted to provide some help out of gratitude for Han Dong, who was willing to take him in as the deep sea messenger. But the moment he took the spear, the hot blood of the past rushed to his heart. He directly killed all kinds of bush hybrid demons, as well as some fungal bodies hidden in the dark. Any enemy that approached Count Wright would be crushed by the spear. The fish scales on his body were indestructible and could resist any form of attack. The seawater under his feet would also have some sea monster limbs emerging from time to time, dragging those who were close into the deep sea. Isomorphic tentacle great white shark. The tentacles that grew from Count Wright's body could immediately weave into the shape of a great white shark, gnawing and swallowing the target. Let's go too. Count Wright's breathing device can't support him to kill all the surrounding hybrid demons. Okay. Abel had long been unable to suppress the fighting spirit in his body. With the technical support of the power armor, the dragon flame from his mouth burned the bush life, and then various strength-type beasts bombarded and crushed the scorched plants. Mia fought with Han Dong. The combination of death spells and witchcraft made the bush life fall into an inescapable quagmire of death. At the bottom of Lake Trasimeno, a special existence with an atavistic body was monitoring the overall situation of the wetland through the delicate toad's eye in his hand. The inferior human race is cautious because of their cowardice. Sure enough, they chose to stay and investigate the wetland. By the time you uncover the secrets of this place, you will lose a large number of good scouts. The setting of multiple spaces can greatly disrupt your investigation ability. Currently, many teams have been ambushed and have been cut off from the camp. Would these ordinary knights be able to withstand the ambush of dozens of hybrid demons? Croak? What's going on here? When he zoomed in and observed the situation in a bush, a total of 19 hybrid demons lurking there had all died tragically, and even a large part of their limbs had been eaten. This group of humans can eat hybrid demons alive? Impossible. What's going on? This person immediately controlled some nearby toads to go to the scene of the incident to investigate carefully. Who knew that all signs of battle had been erased. The humans who acted here were extremely cautious and did not leave any clues. Just as he was focusing on this point, several other ambush points also had problems. A group of beast knights running on all fours appeared in the wetland. Their movement speed was unimaginable. Like a pack of wolves, the knights quickly provided support in all directions. With swift and sharp attacks, they tore apart the mushroom piles, vine nets, and thorns. They worked together with the investigation team trapped inside to deal with the hybrid demons. The death rate of the investigation knights was minimized, causing the ambush plan to completely fail. The Lake Lord was so angry that he crushed the toad's eye in his hand. Lure out the bait and prepare for the surprise attack. Chapter 840. In the wetlands, a black carriage was speeding along. Most of the time, the wheels didn't even touch the ground. Its aura was also minimized and couldn't be located. Inside the raven carriage, taking off his mask, Right Count, who had turned into his original form, spat out some undigested plant vines, a few mushrooms, and a large number of dead tadpoles. These shrubbery hybrid demons, as well as fungi scattered in the wet environment, they seem to be part of the wetlands, but in fact they are completely unrelated to the toad. The feeling of this wetlands is completely different from the toad area I've been to before. It turns out that many forces have gathered together and used various methods to hide in different areas of the wetlands. Moreover, what we have seen so far is not complete. Perhaps there are more hybrid demon forces hiding in the swamp. Just when everyone was deep in thought after hearing this information, Han Dong's face was full of surprise. It was like he had won the lottery. Great! What do you mean? Nicholas, what do you want to do? For some reason, Abel had a very bad premonition. Nothing. Abel, don't worry. I won't directly confront so many forces. Let's go back to the base first. When the Raven carriage returned to the Expeditionary Army's garrison by a completely different route, it happened to pass by an important area. That's the Toad statue? Although they had obtained a lot of information in the ambush, it was still not enough. Since they happened to pass by the important wetlands node, they naturally had to get off the carriage to investigate. The old Right Count asked, "Sir, I'll go with you." However, Han Dong stopped the Count. "No need. The help you provided, Count Right, is enough. Moreover, the dream reality ability should have a very long cooldown period, right? If you still want to save up for battle, please be sure to wait for a while." At this point, Han Dong put his mouth close to the Murloc's ear. "When I start a land contract war with a lord hiding here, at that time I hope you can provide some help from the deep sea." After all, this battle will be a small land contract versus a medium land contract. On the surface, we are at a disadvantage. After the battle just now, Right Count, who had regained his former glory, had his bulging eyeballs flickering with luster. We are willing to fight for milord. Okay, go back and rest. When Han Dong took back the Fishman Count's title deed, he unexpectedly encountered a certain amount of resistance. Although he eventually took it in, the resistance made Han Dong very uncomfortable. The reason for the resistance was that there were other land deeds near the wetlands. It could be seen that the restrictions on the mobile title deed were quite large. The most convenient one was Han Dong's own head. Abel, you and Mia stay in the car. Demps and I will go take a look at the toad idol. If we encounter an ambush, we'll meet up immediately. All right. The so-called toad idol stood in the middle of the stream in the wetland. Part of its head was exposed, as if it was deliberately exposed. Needless to say, a large number of toads were lurking in the stream. Once they sensed a different species, they would erode and parasitize. However, it was not effective for Han Dong and Demp. Han Dong left a crow on the shore. Immediately, he covered his whole body with tentacles and covered his body with a crow coat. He came to the bottom of the stream and looked directly at the strange idol. The sacrificial stone pillar seems to be carved from stone, but it exudes a sense of space and a strange sense of vitality. Is this the reason for the formation of the wetland? I really want to send it back to study it. Demps, do you have anything to say? There is nothing to say. It is just a stone pillar that can change the terrain. However, I have to remind Nicholas, this toad is quite special. If you want to describe it, it is extremely clingy. Once you get infected, it is difficult to get rid of the troublesome guy. Let the expeditionary force deal with it as much as possible. Don't touch this toad. No, the corresponding wetland of the toad doesn't match with the Scarlet Manor. What I want is a land deed that matches the correlation coefficient and can be devoured by me. Dempus pushed up his glasses and the corners of his mouth curled up. I knew you would think this way. It seems like you had a great harvest while picking up trash in Perugia City. You're actually considering the issue of swallowing the land deed. We will talk about it when the time comes. At this moment, Han Dong and Demps felt a pressure at the same time. The pressure came directly from the stone pillar, and it was not weaker than the pressure of the Lord of Perugia. At the same time, the stream where the two were was changed. The whole stream and the surrounding wetland area turned into a big toad mouth. Han Dong and Demps were inside the big mouth. The teeth were about to close, and a spatial turbulence came out from the depths of the mouth. A spatial trap? It was impossible to escape with the speed of the body. Fortunately, Han Dong encountered an ambush in the wetland in advance, which made Han Dong aware of the problem of perceptual pressure. Naturally, his vigilance increased a lot. Before entering the stream, he left a crow on a branch on the shore. At this moment, Han Dong reached out and aimed at the crow. At the same time, the palm and the crow's mouth shot out tentacles with the color of stars and connected together before the toad's mouth was about to close. Han Dong put one hand on Demp's shoulder. Void transfer in the blink of an eye, the two arrived on the branch where the crow was. Using the toad statue as bait? Setting a spatial trap. What is this thing? The two standing on the trunk could see what kind of existence was about to devour them. A giant toad with a body size of more than 100 meters was crouching in the wetland in a half-real and half-virtual state. Seeing that the prey had escaped, it immediately moved its huge body to continue hunting. The moment the tongue shot out, Han Dong had already returned to the carriage with Demps. With the help of Mr. Black and White's supercar, they quickly got out of the toad's hunting range. The toad squatted down and continued to merge with the wetland. Its mouth turned into a stream. The corresponding stone pillar of the toad statue deliberately left a small part of the water surface, as if waiting for others to take the bait. In the speeding crow carriage, before anyone could ask what was going on, Demps made a conclusion. Sure enough, the Lord hiding in the depths of the wetland should have received a gift from the Bufo. He has some kind of chaotic treasure. This kind of spatial trap and perceptual suppression is not something an ordinary atavistic body can do. Only knights who are proficient in spatial techniques have the possibility of escaping. With the toad statue as bait, many search teams should have fallen into the trap. The balance was broken by such a spatial trap. It's a little troublesome. Han Dong crossed his hands in front of him and frowned. The Lord hiding here is smarter than we expected, and he has a lot of tricks. It's really troublesome to be in a passive situation. However, it's also a good thing that we can start the war early. Chapter 841. Even with the wolves of Evernight providing assistance and communication between different scouting teams, they were still unable to prevent this sudden spatial trap. A total of 9 scouting teams were swallowed by the toads and their whereabouts were unknown. Han Dong, Abel and the others' safe return also made many people, especially some of the wolves from the Behemoth Knight Order, sigh in relief. The great demon captain immediately gathered the scouting teams together and summarized the information. The knights who were sent out to scout naturally had a certain level of ability. Among them, there were 4 teams that successfully escaped from the spatial trap. Therefore, Han Dong was not in a hurry to report the information. If there was any important information that was not mentioned, Han Dong would fill in the gaps. However, in the end, there was no need for Han Dong to add anything. Everything that needed to be said had been said. Moreover, a night squad had received a piece of information that even Han Dong did not know about. They confirmed that in the wetland area, other than the toads, fungi, and the plants, there was a 4th type of shadow hybrid demon. At the same time, they also confirmed a few important information. 1. The area suspected of being a nest. The area covered by the land deed. 2. The multiple sensory suppression in the wetland area. Han Dong did not say anything during the entire process and silently listened to all of this. As expected, the knights who were sent out to investigate are all very capable. I don't need to add anything. Being a salted fish that no one pays attention to makes it easier to move. I wonder how the great demon captain will deal with this? If dozens of knights were captured and he directly sent out the troops corresponding to the world law to search the suspected nest area, he would fall into the enemy's trap. What is the best solution? Han Dong lowered his head and smiled, quietly waiting for the great demon captain's arrangement. Unexpectedly, the great demon captain did not mention the emergency response at all. Instead, he gave a sentence that could be heard by the entire expeditionary army camp. A medium-scale battle is about to break out. Knights, please be prepared for battle. The battle that is about to break out will not be in the form of registration. We will directly arrange for the surprise attack team to attack at a fixed location. After saying that, whoosh, a pair of exaggerated white wings grew out of the great demon captain's back, and he flew out of the castle. At the same time, there were also Death and Jaros who were already prepared in the various legions. That's right, this was the great demon captain's simplest and most effective method to deal with this. When the scouting teams received the above information, they directly sent out the expeditionary army's highest combat power and conducted a fixed location search of the suspicious area without violating the world law. By not breaking the rules, the captains were not allowed to attack any of the hybrid demons in the deed region. Of course, the captains did not need to attack. What they needed to do was to investigate the suspicious area to find the nest, to search. As long as they were in the end the great demon captain of the dark, as long as they could make it in time, they would be able to save some missing to rescue to the demon who were missing knights. The world under the eternal night was always unknown and passive to humans. Let's assume that there was an old king in this wetland. To attack of the expeditionary army camp, to attack, to the expeditionary army of the expeditionary. The only ones who could minimize the threat posed by the old king were the Grim Reaper and Malone. As long as one of them was present, a low-level old king alone would not be enough to cause the entire team to be wiped out. At the same time, the three great demon captains who went out also acted together to avoid being caught. They conducted a fixed location search of the suspicious area as fast as they could. Once they found something, they would immediately retreat to the camp to prevent the hybrid demons from sensing the powerful aura and sacrificing themselves to lure the old king. Being ambushed like this, the great demon captain is indeed angry. However, this is indeed the best method. This way we can check if the old king is hiding in this area and speed up the outbreak of the battle, instead of staying in the wetland for a long time. However, such a cunning toad should have a way to deal with it. The three great demon captains flew through the wetland as fast as they could. In less than 15 minutes, the fixed location search had yielded result. A peaceful and huge lake came into view, Lake Trasimeno. Just as great demon Captain Jaros was about to use the highest level of detection magic to forcefully bypass the perception restriction of the wetland to spy on the lake Gurgle. A series of bubbles appeared in the middle of the lake. A giant toad that occupied half the lake slowly rose from the lake. On top of the toad's head stood a humanoid life form wrapped in a wet cloak. There were large amounts of herpes on his exposed feet and ankles. A distorted voice that imitated the human language came out from this person's mouth. I am the messenger of Toad City, Araki. I won't say any more useless words. I only have one purpose for appearing, and that is to sign the battle book that conforms to the rules with you humans. According to our Lord, he wants to use the knights lost in the wetland in exchange for the additional rules of the battle book. If the three of you are not willing, then please allow my lord to use these knights to entertain the guests in Toad City. If there were no restrictions of the rules, the great demon captain really wanted to smash this messenger's head with a punch. At the moment, he could only suppress his anger and accept the other party's proposal. Let me see. The messenger directly stuck out his tongue and passed the drafted battle book to the great demon captain. It was written in the supplementary terms of the battle book that as long as the human side agreed to sign this battle book, they could immediately take away the knights lost in the wetland and guarantee that these knights did not suffer any fatal injuries. However, the additional terms attached to the battle book were a little too much. The additional terms were as follows. 1. The battle area will be chosen by the hybrid demons. 2. The force index of the human side needs to include the 43 missing knights that were captured. How is it? In fact, such a rule is not too much, right? After all, the knights lost in the wetland are also considered a member of the battle. Since you are the guests and we are the hosts, the location of the treat is naturally up to us. You can take this battle book back and discuss it before making a decision. As long as you sign your name, we will definitely send the lost knights back to your army safely. Of course, don't take too long. After all, these knights seem to be unable to withstand the pollution. There's no harm in telling you secretly. Some of the knights in the toad's body have already experienced hallucinations and vomiting. After saying that, the messenger sank to the bottom of the lake with the giant toad. Holding the battle book, and falling into a passive situation, the great demon captain's arrogance had accumulated to a certain extent. Despicable dirty things. Chapter 842. Bottom of Lake Trasimeno, Toad City. The reason why the main battlefield of attacking humans was set in the wetland area was closely connected to Toad City. Even the other three atavistic body that were originally in an opposing or neutral relationship with the Lord of Toad City responded to the call. All of Toad City followed the wetland battle plan. There was only one reason. A secret deal had been reached in private among the lords. The deal was as follows: Lord of Venaga Shadow Manor, True Eyeshadow, Kit P. Walker Lord of Green Manor, Green Old Man, Mr. Bouvier Oliphus Lord of Deer Mushroom Swamp, Trainer Marlowe Mushroom. The above three lords needed to provide 50% of the land deeds to the Lord of Toad City during the battle. The Lord of Bufo would use a Chaos Treasure, Perfect Epic from the Bufo's gift Wet Tumor Stone as the core. Then 4 medium-sized land deeds were used as node. The Super Wetland, that could cover 45% of the central area of Italos, was built. Because of the superposition of the 4 medium-sized land deeds, coupled with this epic Chaos Treasure, the Super Wetland could greatly suppress the perception of outsiders, making it easy for them to get lost in it. This was also the reason why the Eye of Expedition could not see through, and the Expeditionary Army was forced to station troops in the wetland. The Expeditionary Army's passive situation was not a strategic mistake. At the same time, the Lord of Toad City also asked for one more thing. She needed 80% of the human knights captured during the Battle of the Wetland. The remaining 20% would be divided equally by the other 3 lords, and she also had the priority to choose the human captives. The unequal distribution of the spoils. 50% of the land deeds with great risk. At the same time, during the battle, she had to be under the Lord of Toad City and be the commander-in-chief of the attack. The 3 lords agreed without hesitation. The reason was simple. The Lord of Toad City, Mary Alice Flowerback Toad, provided a condition that the other 3 lords could not refuse, a condition that could let them by a step further into the mythical realm. Wall watching. Atavism was already an extremely difficult process for the hybrid demons. The realization of atavism made them unique and gave them the identity of a middle lord, giving them a place in the world, but no hybrid demon would be satisfied with this. When they abandoned everything to achieve atavism, they could vaguely see a deeper level of the mythical realm. Behind that mythical door, there was an indescribable power, the fundamental law of the universe, and the ticket to the king's abyss. Everything the atavistic body had done. This included all kinds of invasions on the scale of land deeds, treasure hunts in dangerous places, and all kinds of sacrifices to the king. They were all aiming to touch the mythical level. Currently, the condition given by the Lord of Toad City, wall observation, was another way to comprehend myth. Just like the pure origin blood wine that originated from the blood ancestor, it could help the descendants of the atavistic body to take a step closer to the mythical realm. Wall observation was a high-level method used by Bufo to cultivate subordinate. Unlike blood brew, wall observation didn't have any side effects. However, the opportunity to observe the wall was also quite rare. Only a few toads had received such a gift. Currently, it should have been the toad's gift. But in front of these outlanders, who wouldn't be tempted? Moreover, these 3 feudal lords had already reached a bottleneck. If they were to develop according to conventional methods, even if the process took thousands of years, it would still be very difficult for them to cross the mythological door. Naturally, he couldn't miss such an opportunity. The timeline was temporarily pushed back to 6 hours ago. The Expeditionary Army had just set off from the bottom of Perugia Mountain. The 3 feudal lords belonging to different forces, after learning about the matter of wall observation, arrived at Toad City with the land deed. Wall usually referred to the toad type of mythical body and above. Every 100 years, they would molt in a grotto with suitable conditions and sufficient sacrifices. The toad clothes that were perfectly molted would merge with the nearby stone walls. Through the method of wall observation, they could understand the structure of the mythical body and take a step closer to the mythical realm. Wherever Big Mushroom Marlowe, whose body was covered with mushrooms, went, the humid streets and walls in Toad City would grow all kinds of mushrooms. In terms of the strength of the atavistic body, he wasn't weak at all. "Mary Lizzie, you have to let us take a look at your wall first, right?" This way we can transfer part of the right to use the land deeds to you without worry. The person Marlowe was talking to was a woman with a spotted toad on her head. She was the Lord of Toad City, Marlowe. Then she made an inviting gesture. Please come with me. Toad Room will not let you down. However, please be mentally prepared. The three feudal lords didn't have too much fear. They came to Toad City through the normal invitation of the messenger. If Meritus wanted to take advantage of the situation and set a trap for them in Toad City, it would anger the old king behind the three of them. They followed Meritus to the deepest part of Toad Palace. The door of Toad Palace was made of pure gold, and the surface was carved by the best craftsmen of Toad City. It was a great existence in the state of holy sloth, covered with short black hair, and with a terrifying toad head. It was a posture of the Bufo. Pushing open the door made of gold, they went along the deep, humid stone wall passage to the deepest part. It was the most sacred wall observation area. The three feudal lords were stunned at the same time. They were also terrified. They were also shocked. They also found it hard to believe. The three of them knelt down devoutly, either involuntarily or voluntarily. The kneeling posture required their heads and palms to be attached to the ground. In the cave wall covered with a layer of black toad skin, a huge existence that emitted endless tiredness was crouching. Half asleep and half awake, an eye slit like an abyss crack slowly opened on the black face. Just staring in sleep made the three atavistic bodies who controlled the medium land deeds wet all over. Toads of different sizes kept drilling out of the eyes, nose, mouth, and ears. Bufo. When Marlowe Mushroom said this sentence, vomit. A large number of mushrooms and toad larvae poured over the ground. At this time, the feudal lord of Toad City, Mary Lacey, explained. This is a clone of the Bufo. It came because of the perfect sacrifice I provided. It is molting in my Toad Palace. However, there is another reason for the Bufo's arrival. It is the human knight who is carrying out a large-scale movement. The Bufo's 100 years molting, this time needs a high-level human as the sacrifice. Therefore, give me the Stone of Eczema to win this battle. As long as the three of you are willing to provide assistance and give me partial control of the land deeds. Once the battle is won and enough human sacrifices are obtained, the important clone of the Great Lord can complete the molting process. The Bufo will allow you to complete the wall observation. Here. The Bufo's wall. There was no hesitation at all, and it was impossible to hesitate. The three feudal lords immediately agreed and signed a battle cooperation contract. Chapter 843. Perhaps no one in the entire expeditionary army would have thought of it. As a relatively mysterious Bufo, that rarely appeared in the real world among the old kings, there was actually such an incarnation hidden in the depths of the wetland, secretly watching this battle. If the Bufo really wanted to come to the wetland in person and confront the expeditionary army head-on, the largest battle of the great expedition might start in advance, and the death toll would be unpredictable. But the Bufo, who had endless slack as one of the divinities, did not want to participate in this battle personally. In a half-asleep state, he could not only see the detailed situation in the wetland, but also dream of some of the results if he personally intervened in this battle. The reality was simple, but the dream was quite complicated, so much so that the Bufo was too lazy to think about it. He just wanted to have a good sleep here. Not to mention what the other old kings would do after the outbreak of a large-scale war, there were only a few knights in this group of humans who could cause harm to him. In the depths of the dream, the scenes of the underworld and hell kept appearing. At the same time, the Bufo also vaguely dreamed of the gray matter, a high-level existence that he was somewhat afraid of and did not want to come into contact with. Since the Bufo did not want to interfere, but he needed a large number of human knights as the necessary sacrifices for the perfect molting, there was only one solution. He ordered the Toad City Lord under his command to launch a surprise attack on the knights who happened to pass by the wetland. However, the scale of the battle launched with a single, medium-sized land deed was relatively small. Even if he won, the captured knights could not meet the basic requirements for sacrifices. Then, the Bufo would use wall observation as a condition to win over the lords of the atavistic body in the nearby area, launch a larger battle, and obtain more knight sacrifices. A surprise attack shrouded in layers of conspiracy had arrived. The bait had caught the prey, and the expeditionary army could only face it head-on. Demon King's castle, using the superposition of multiple land deeds and a chaotic treasure from the Bufo, set up a super wetland that can seriously suppress perception. Then, using the Wu Toad statue as bait, capture some reconnaissance teams whose perception is seriously affected. Then they used hostages in exchange for priority, not giving us much time to think at all. Do you think a few atavistic physiques can swallow our entire expeditionary army? Although the great demon commander had a mocking smile on his face, his heart was burning with rage. Currently, the expeditionary army could only make 3 choices. 1. Accept the treaty of battle. 2. They didn't accept the treaty and formed an assault team suitable for wetlands to attack the nest of the hybrid demons. 3. According to the information detected so far, find the route to leave the wetland. Completely abandon the hostages and leave the wetland. Focus on the expedition plan. The decision on how to weigh the pros and cons would be left to the commander of the expeditionary army, the Great Demon. Once the additional treaty is accepted, it was necessary to ensure that the number of dead or heavily polluted people in the wetland campaign would not exceed the number of missing people. Otherwise, such a strategy would be a failure. However, the Great Demon Captain seemed to have made his decision long ago. He stared at the signatures of the 4 lords with atavistic bodies on the battle book. The Great Demon Commander pointed out the names and titles of the 4 elite knights in the expeditionary force. 3rd Captain of the Black Rose Knights, Dark Eye Macefield. Plague Knights, 1st Captain and head of the Plague Prevention and Control Headquarters in the Holy City, Mr. Mushroom or Dr. Darch. The 1st Captain of the Wind Knights and the founding priest of the Lightless Church, Bernal the Eyeless. Scarlet Knights, 2nd Captain or Dr. Langdon Castanov. The 4 elite knights immediately gathered in the hall. Each of them emitted an extremely powerful aura. The talent tree they had developed had reached another level. Obviously, corresponding to the 4 lords with atavistic bodies in the battle book, the 4 commanders would be fully responsible for the upcoming wetland campaign. The Great Demon Commander and the other 4 commanders had reached a consensus. Accept the treaty. The essence of the Great Expedition was an exploration of the Evernight, a challenge to the royal power, and a struggle for freedom. Endless unknowns existed outside the city. In the face of endless unknowns, a detailed strategy was like a torch in the dark night. It could only illuminate a part of the road but could not erase all the darkness. To achieve all the goals of the Great Expedition, it required not only the success of various strategies, but also the implementation of the Golden Spirit in the Knights. Courage, wisdom, and justice were the sharpest swords of the Knights. This battle must be won, and the lost companions must be rescued. With the confirmation of the 4 commanders, a total of 1108 expeditionary knights would participate, and the specific grouping would be decided by the 4 commanders. For this wetland campaign, the Great Demon Commander only gave one request: eliminate all the hybrid demons. Under the leadership of the 4 commanders, more than 1,000 knights actually came to Lake Trasimeno and threw the battle book signed by the entire army into the lake. Gurgle gurgle. The situation was the same as before. The messenger standing on the head of the giant toad appeared, holding the parchment that was not soaked by the lake water, and smiled with satisfaction. Then 43 knights who were in a daze and felt that their bodies had been soaked by the lake water came ashore from the bottom of the lake and returned to the team. According to the treaty, they would also be counted as a member of the battle. Then, next, I will take you to the battle area. Please do not resist. The process is completely in accordance with the rules of the world, and it will not cause any physical harm to you. The toad at the bottom of the lake opened its mouth that was hundreds of meters wide. The dark mouth emitted a strong spatial aura and swallowed the knights on the shore. It was also the moment before they were swallowed. Eyeless Bernal, the first captain of the Wind Knights and the founding priest of the Lightless Church, released the lightless chain and instantly connected the souls of all the knights. It had ensured that during the process of being swallowed into the space, they would not be separated by the turbulence. In the blink of an eye, the knights had already landed in a damp relic, with an extremely high concentration of moisture. Bean-sized raindrops were crazily hitting the surface of the ruined stones of the relic, and there seemed to be toad eggs in the raindrops. The current location of the knights happened to be in the hub area of the ruins. There were a total of 4 roads with different characteristics around them for the knights to choose from, which seemed to correspond to the land deed areas of the 4 lords. At the same time, in the center of the hub there was a giant toad stone tablet. Some high-level words that could pollute the vision were written on it. Without Han Dong's interpretation, the secret language knights in the group immediately translated the words on it. What was printed on it was the rules of the Wetland Campaign. The human side needed to be divided into 4 companies and go to different land deed areas at the same time. If they captured 3 land deed areas, they would win the battle. Chapter 844. Damp Ruins. The ruins area was completely isolated from reality. As a special space in the Battle of the Wetlands, its essence was above the superposition of 4 land deeds. If one wanted to trace the root of the formation of this ruin, it was naturally related to the Bufo. The Bufo only created this space, and did not interfere with the battle itself. Space swallowing. All the official knights had experienced multiple space transmissions from the Gate of Destiny. The shoes stepped firmly on the damp ground of the ruins. As soon as they heard the sound of raindrops, the knights who were proficient in enchantment spells immediately built a barrier that covered all of them to prevent the raindrops containing toad eggs from coming into contact with their bodies. Bernal the Eyeless. He rolled up the lightless robe inlaid with silver edges, put his palm on the ground, and used a special method to understand some of the characteristics of the ruins. A completely independent space. The infinite energy has been disconnected from us, and the power armor can't operate for a long time. The root of the construction of this ruin may be above the 4 intermediate land deeds. Sure enough, a high-level existence took a fancy to the wetlands and secretly arranged all of this in advance. No wonder they had to add a clause in the battle book to let them choose the battle area. Bernal, you mean there is a guy above the mythical level hiding in the wetlands? Yes. Such an independent space is too perfect, and I can't find any flaws. Only the existence that touches that layer of rules can create such a space. The 4 land deeds are just a fulcrum to make this place more stable. However, since the name does not appear in the battle book, it will not interfere with the battle itself. You should quickly consider the current situation and how to choose the 4 paths, and how to deal with the 43 lost knights who are in an abnormal state. Bernal, you have the highest experience outside the city. I will leave the commander-in-chief to you. The 3 of us are willing to follow your arrangements. Bernal nodded and took over the heavy responsibility of the commander-in-chief. Okay. First, I will ask Dr. Langdon Kastanov to perform a comprehensive physical examination on the lost knight. After excluding the physical body, I will use the lightless field to block their thoughts. I personally recommend not to let them participate in this battle and just stay in the ruins hub area to rest. Yes. The special doctor, who was 185 meters tall and had curly blonde hair and a mask, walked towards the lost knights who were isolated in the crowd. This group of lost knights had stayed in Toad City for at least an hour. It was impossible to determine what kind of treatment they had received during this period. Dr. Langdon Castillo. He was the doctor with the highest surgical skills in the Scarlet Knights and also had the title of Butcher. He was the head of the surgery department at the Red Cross Hospital and also worked part-time on the dissection of living hybrid demons. Blood Knight Lucius learned the cutting technique from Dr. Castanov. The second captain of the Scarlet Knights was a dangerous figure both inside and outside the city. Even though all of his patients had survived, when they saw Dr. Langdon again, they were even more afraid than when they saw the Mantis demon. Although the Scarlet Knights were a backup force, if they were to be sent to the battlefield, this doctor's killing speed was no slower than the other captains. Han Dong, who was mixed in the crowd, sneaked a peek at this person. In addition to the murderous aura like a sea of blood, there was also a crazy aura similar to mad laughter, which was somewhat similar to Han Dong's aura. Nicholas, this guy, is very powerful. Even when Count felt the aura of this person, his words were slightly scared. Dr. Langdon didn't do too many physical examinations at all. The examination method for these lost knights was quite direct. Swish, a silver-white scalpel popped out from his fingertips and cut down the middle of the back. Without any blood dripping, the spines of the knights were completely exposed. A large number of blood vessels shot out from the tip of Dr. Langdon's finger connected to the spinal nerves of the knights for a full-body examination. There was an abnormality. More than a dozen scalpels of different models popped out from Dr. Langdon's palm and immediately performed an open abdominal surgery on the dazed lost knight. Extremely secretive toad larvae, hidden between the internal organs and merged with the body, were perfectly cut out by the scalpel. Many such eggs were even found in the anterior lobe of the brain. Fortunately, the strong willpower of the knights and the autonomous defense of the talent tree kept them out of the cerebellum. Otherwise, even if they could be saved, they would slowly develop into the slaves of the hybrid demons. Corresponding. After such a large-scale operation, and with the body contaminated, the lost knights were completely immobilized and could not participate in this battle at all. After Dr. Langdon determined the basic situation, he immediately ordered the Scarlet Doctors to perform the operation together. The hub area immediately turned into a large-scale operation site. The moment all the operations were completed, the lightless pillar shrouded them and led their consciousness to another peaceful lightless world. It ensured that the knight's consciousness was in a happy state of thinking that they were still alive, slowing down the death of the body and prolonging the optimal treatment period. Once the battle was over, they would be sent back to the barracks to receive the blood exchange treatment from Captain Shea. That was it. All the hidden dangers hidden in the knights were eliminated. The next step was to officially start the battle. They needed to find the right path and attack the 4 areas of the title deed at the same time. The first road was dark and deep, extending to a canyon outside the ruins. When looking into the depths, there was always an uncomfortable feeling of peeping. The second road gave people the feeling of a primitive jungle, with all kinds of green and vibrant plants growing on both sides of the road. There were smiling faces printed on the trunks, and with the branches swaying in the wind, it was as if they were welcoming the arrival of outsiders. The third road led to the depths of the ruins. The air was filled with plague spores, and there were all kinds of mushrooms growing on the road. There was even a cicadere with mushrooms on the surface of its skin flashing in front of everyone. The fourth road led to the lower area of the ruins. There were all kinds of spotted toads jumping around on the wet road. Now it seemed that they just needed to select the knights with the corresponding attributes and target these territories. Was it really that simple? One had to know that the knights were extremely passive in this battle. Han Dong took the opportunity to approach the passage leading to the green field. It should be closer to the Scarlet Manor's title deed. However, after standing at the intersection for a long time, the title deed stored in his mind did not respond much. He approached the other intersections one after another, but the title deed still did not respond. Sure enough, coming to other people's territory can only be more and more passive. It is extremely difficult to change the initiative. Chapter 845. Distribute evenly. The Isles Bernal immediately proposed the distribution method for the 4 companies. Knights of different types and strengths would be evenly distributed. Each company would be able to adapt to any type of combat environment, and their basic combat strength would not differ by more than 10%. From the very beginning, he did not believe that these 4 roads with distinct characteristics would lead to the corresponding areas of the title deeds. Nicholas, do you want to follow me? It was the final stage of the distribution. Except for Isles Bernal, the other 3 captains asked Han Dong the same question at the same time. Black Rose Knights, Dark-Eye Macefield, a one-eyed, limping, thin, and old knight. He was also a master assassin and one of the top night watchers. He looked for Han Dong because of Han Dong's identity as a night watcher. He had also seen Han Dong and Captain Coden in the Night Watcher headquarters. Knights of Pestilence, Mr. Mushroom, a Dr. Darge. It was a kind-looking old man in his 60s, draped in his exclusive white plague robe, symbolizing his highest attainments in the field of plague research. Because Han Dong had a close relationship with Mr. Black and White, and he was also familiar with the Great Plague Chief. Although Mr. Mushroom did not know much about Han Dong, he knew that Han Dong must be effectively protected in this battle. He could not die in this place. Scarlet Knights, Dr. Langdon Castanov. There seemed to be another reason for looking for Han Dong. The 3 captains also looked at each other. They did not expect to meet at this point. Han Dong did not hesitate. He seemed to have made a decision very early. Dr. Darge, I'll leave the problem of the fungi in the ruins to you. No matter where the lord related to the fungi is hiding, you should be able to find his real nest. Although I can resist the plague, my partners are not very good in this aspect. Okay. After tactfully declining, Dr. Darge turned and left. Dr. Langdon Castanov, with your strength, you should be able to easily kill a large number of hybrid demons. If there's any private matter, let's go back to the Expeditionary Army Hospital and talk in private. Sure. Han Dong's guess was correct. Dr. Langdon did not choose to protect Han Dong because of Commander Shea's order. Instead, he simply smelled the scent of Han Dong's nether blood. Plus, Han Dong's outstanding performance in the previous battle had piqued Langdon's curiosity. Why would a Tier 2 knight have so many secrets? After rejecting the 2 captains' invitation, Han Dong's squad naturally joined Dark Eye's squad. His almost weightless arm gently rested on Han Dong's shoulder. Commander Coden seems to think highly of you. I will do my best to provide protection. Your companions have decent aptitudes, even though they are only new knights who have passed true fate once. With your special traits, you should be able to reach the Expeditionary Army's average standard. Follow me. All right. Just like that, the allocation of the 4 companies was completed. Since the characteristics of the 4 paths had no meaning of reference, subjectively thinking about the corresponding characteristics of the paths would only lead to falling into the trap set by the hybrid demons. In that case, when choosing the path, they had to disregard the subjective factors and use the dice to determine the path. The results of the 4-sided dice were as follows. Isles Bernal corresponds to the jungle path. Mr. Shroom, Dr. Darch corresponds to the fungus path. Dr. Langdon Castanov corresponds to the dark path. Dark Eye Macefield corresponds to the toad path. In fact, based on the combined strength of the 4 captains, Dark Eye, as the 3rd captain, was slightly weaker. Moreover, Dark Eye's characteristics were more inclined towards assassination, not leading the Night Squad in a frontal assault. The Grand Demon Commander initially chose Dark Eye to participate in the battle in the wetlands because he wanted to borrow Dark Eye's strength to deal with the Dark Shadow faction, hiding in the wetlands. The priority right now was not in the hands of the knights, so they could not choose their opponents. When Dark Eye chose the toad path, which was theoretically the most dangerous path by rolling the dice, many of the knights under his command gasped. However, since they had decided on the objective of rolling the dice, they would not change it. Even if they really encountered the strongest toad force in the wetlands, they must face it head-on. Even if they had to pay a terrible price, they must win. On the other hand, Han Dong in the team showed a joyful smile because he set foot on the toad path. Because of the disconnection of the endless energy source, the knights during the exploration put away the power armor. Walking on the wet path full of toads, Mia immediately stepped forward and held Han Dong's arm tightly. Compared to the wetlands outside, the perception suppression in the ruins was more intense. Even if Mia fully activated her spider perception, the coverage range was less than 10 meters. Nicholas, can your perception completely spread out here? Let's try, it shouldn't have much effect. Han Dong, who followed the team, just wanted to be a salted fish. With Dark Eye leading the way, he only needed to follow. Seeing Mia's frightened face, she was like a lone spider in the dark, trembling because the perception she was proud of was swallowed by the darkness. Han Dong also wanted to test how much the ruins could suppress his little magic eye. The moment he opened the eye between his eyebrows, it was as if a string was suddenly connected. When the little magic eye opened, Han Dong's consciousness was in a huge stone cave. The stone wall was covered with a layer of strange black skin, like the skin of a giant toad. The black skin blended with the rock layer. The uneven walls and the protruding toad slices actually formed some twisted high-level characters. You must open 100% of the magic eye to barely see the living text. For a moment, Han Dong actually saw a door leading to the truth on the wall. At this moment, a black hairy object sitting in the middle of the cave suddenly moved. Han Dong was so scared that all the tentacles on his head overflowed. He desperately used all his strength to close the magic eye. Connection cut off. His body went soft. Han Dong, who was walking with the team, suddenly fell down. He barely supported himself with his hands and stared at the toad jumping between his palms, gasping for breath. His legs were even a little weak, and it was difficult for him to get up. This scene was also seen by many of the knights in the same group. Thinking that Han Dong was just a newcomer who had just become a knight for a year, they didn't mean to look down on him. They only hoped that Han Dong could keep up with the team's speed and not be a burden. Only the members of Han Dong's team realized the seriousness of the matter. "Dear, what's wrong with you?" Because of Han Dong's problem, Mia, who looked anxious, had her fear of the unfamiliar environment swept away. Ugh, a large amount of black hair and toad skin were vomited out of Han Dong's mouth. After vomiting, Han Dong didn't care about his body at all and hurriedly took out a pen and paper from his head. He began to draw according to the image in his head, drawing a more abstract black hairy object. "Demps, what is this?" Demps, who took the drawing paper, was so scared that his body trembled, and cold sweat flowed down his cheeks. "Nicholas, did you see the bufo just now?" Chapter 846. The conversation between Han Dong and Demps was completed through magic telepathy. Words like bufo naturally couldn't be said in public, or it would cause widespread panic. The expeditionary forces that came here, even Ilis Bernal, couldn't face the old king directly. In fact, Han Dong had a prediction in his heart. It could cause him to have a physiological reaction similar to deep contamination, instantly activate the defensive characteristics of the faceless skull, and cause the most primitive fear to arise in Han Dong's heart. What the little magic I saw must be a king-level existence. It was different from the situation in Perugia City. The old king came in person and hid in the cave deep in the ruins, secretly spying on everything. In Han Dong's opinion, this bufo wasn't just there to watch the show. It was very likely that its purpose was the death of the knights. At this time, Demps continued to explain through telepathy. This is the Toad's area, and with the scene you described, I'm 90% sure that what you just saw was the most common incarnation of the Bufo SG. Your magic eye came from the highest text, hybrid demon world, a high imitation copy of the Book of the Dead. The pseudo-magic eye that was cultivated, coupled with the real camouflage provided by your head, is almost no different from a real magic eye. Father Bernal has proven that the battle area we are in is an independent space created by a high-level existence. When your magic eye opened, for some unknown reason, it successfully connected with the space creator, causing your consciousness to go directly to the other party's area. At least, Nicholas, you have verified one thing. The one who created the battle area wasn't some mythical entity that happened to pass by, but the old king, Bufo SG, who deliberately came here with a purpose. Han Dong slowly propped up his body, half covering his face with one hand, and asked a very important question. Since it's the space created by the old king, is it possible for him to intervene in this battle? There's no problem with the battle book itself. If he intervenes, it's against the world rules. Some of the old kings who are hostile to this Bufo may take the opportunity to cause trouble. However, it was just as Nicholas was worried. This ruin was an independent space created by the Bufo and was stabilized by 4 medium title deeds. The atavistic body, in the central region of Italos, seemed to have been bribed by the Bufo in some way. Otherwise, it would not have taken such a big risk to give out the right to use the title deed. Even if he violated the rules, he would not immediately be targeted by the old kings nearby. With such a stable sealed space, the Bufo could kill us all first, then find a way to escape into the dimensional space and wait for the punishment period to end. Therefore, we try our best not to do anything that would anger the Bufo. The only good news was that the Toad ancestor was an old king who was known for being lazy and indolent. Let's hope things aren't as bad as we think. If there's really trouble, Nicholas, will you solve it, or should I ask Mother to come over? I'll do it. Based on the current situation, the Bufo is just using the atavistic body under his command to do things. As you said, Demps, try not to anger the Bufo. After a while of discussion, Han Dong adjusted his state of mind and followed the team. Han Dong simply responded to the concerns from Mia and Abel. I just accidentally saw the higher being, who created the independent space. It's not a big problem. Even if there's a problem, I can at least keep you alive. Deep ruins inside Toad Palace, just as Commander Bernal inferred. The knights came to this ruin that was isolated from reality through the space transmission. In addition to cutting off the connection with the endless energy, it was impossible to gain any geographical advantage. No matter how they chose the 4 paths, it was useless. The 4 land deeds hidden in the ruins could be changed on their own and used to counter the knight regiment. Therefore, Father Bernard's equal distribution decision to let the combat power of the 4 companies be on the same level was the best strategy at the moment. Mushroom. This person has a strong mushroom smell. It's really fresh. Maybe it can be used as a mushroom delicacy to help the wall observation, to increase the efficiency of the wall observation. The Lord from the Deer Mushroom Swamp, Marlowe Mushroom, stared at Mr. Mushroom, Dr. Darge, and locked on to his target. Meritus, who had the spotted toad on her head, asked, Mushroom, are you sure it'll work? Ha ha. The opportunity to observe the wall observation is right in front of me. How can I be impulsive? Meritus looked at the other 2 lords. In that case, I'll arrange the conflicts in the other areas. Green, you deal with the old knight called Dark Eye. Your green plants should be able to restrict his ability. Shadow Demon, you deal with the knight who is full of blood. Use the advantage of the canyon, the ability to fly, and the shadow to bypass this elite knight who has a strong desire to kill. Kill the knights behind him. When you've killed enough, you can target him. As for me, I'll deal with the most troublesome one, the priest abandoned light. I'll use part of the Buffo's gift to win. However, just as Toad Girl, Meritus arranged the various strategic plans as the host. A tum with black hair on the surface suddenly shot out from the depths of the palace. It didn't give Meritus any chance to resist and wrapped around her body. Whoosh! Meritus was already standing in the place where the Buffo's incarnation was hibernating. My lord! This sudden situation scared Meritus so much that the pores all over her body expanded to the width of a finger. Tadpoles kept drilling out from the pores. She thought that her wrong decision had angered her lord. Due to tiredness and laziness, the Buffo that was in a sleeping state had completely awakened. Various forms of high-level magic patterns were hidden and flowing on the huge, black, and abyss-like eyeball. The Buffo seemed to be able to release disaster-level magic in the blink of an eye. An irresistible voice resounded in Meritus' head. Among this group of human knights, there's a special existence who has learned the book of necromancy. He's mixed in with the team led by the Dark Eye Knight. Slightly change your original plan. You'll deal with the team with the weakest overall strength. Capture this person alive and bring him to me. You'll be allowed to use the Stone of Eczema to deal with them. Meritus was shocked after hearing this. The Book of Necromancy, even we can't. How can a lowly human get such a treasure that has long been lost in the void? How can they study such a book? Even if they can learn it, it's definitely a high-quality copy. It can't be a real book. After capturing him, I'll check it myself. Don't let me down. Chapter 847. They walked along the path of the toad. The road was winding and slanting downward, as if it was passing through the depths of the ruins. During the 3-hour walk, everyone found that the scale of the ruins was larger than they had imagined. Coupled with the influence of the independent space on personal senses, it made it impossible for everyone to estimate their current location. They were clearly walking on the path of the ruins without stepping down any stairs, but they felt that they had arrived at a very deep area. The humidity was getting thicker and thicker. Many knights had eczema of various sizes on their bodies, and there were toad eggs swimming inside. Or burned with flames, or purified with holy light, or used the blood exchange therapy provided by the Scarlet Doctor to maintain the best physical condition of every knight as much as possible. At this moment, the knight company led by a dark eye. Macefield, stop. The path of the toad led everyone to a lake similar to Lake Trasimeno in the ruins. Hundreds of beautiful women floated, swam, and played on the surface of the lake. Their exposed bodies were no different from humans, with a kind of water grass that could not completely cover their bodies to cover a few key parts. Their faces were painted with charming eyeshadow, on their necks was a golden collar similar to that of slaves, with a toad structure at the mouth of the collar. Due to walking in the ruins for a long time, their senses were numb, and their vigilance and concentration were greatly reduced, a kind of spiritual invasion brought by the tranquil lake. The charm of the beautiful woman, coupled with her makeup and accessories, was brought about by her charm. There were actually a few knights who took the initiative to walk towards the lake. Once they stepped into the lake, there was a possibility of deep pollution. Just as Han Dong was thinking about spreading the sound of crazy laughter, suddenly, he felt a gentle and strong spiritual thread slowly spreading among the knight company. There's actually such a knight. Why didn't I notice it at the beginning? Han Dong looked in the direction of a corresponding scholar's temperament. Handsome, and vicissitudes of life were imprinted on his face at the same time. During the march, this person would often tell some interesting stories to the knights with him. He was a knight with a sense of humor. A Pecharia sky driftwood unique, as the base material, coupled with pan string. Sheep intestine epic, as the strings, an epic magic artifact made by exquisite work. Lute zither pan's melancholy, the strings were plucked. A light and joyful song was sung by the knight. It was similar to a country song from Italy, but it covered the entire lake in a short time. The combination of the music was perfect, and it quickly cleared away the negative influences in the minds of the knights. It even provided the knights with a buff called brisk rhythm, which increased their agility by 10%. Minstrel, Meredith, she was a high-level secret guardian of the Knights of Secret Words. Meredith, who was dressed plainly, often performed for public welfare in the noble district and the commoner district. The performance fee he received from the nobles was distributed to the commoners who could understand and immerse themselves in his song. He was an unfathomable talented knight. Knights of the Secret Word, the mysterious Meredith. 6 years ago, during the Knight Conference, he played a lullaby that was created by himself. He was so immersed in it that he fell asleep during the finals. In the end, he was successfully recruited by Captain Hugo as the second in line. You should know Nicholas, right? He's also a member of the Secret Words Knights? I really don't know him. The structure of the Secret Museum is intricate, and it's difficult to meet other knights. Just as Demps was talking, this person also cast a kind look in his direction. The cheerful tune woke all the knights up, and at the same time, it also made the coquettish women who were playing in the lake fall into a rather uncomfortable state. Sizzle, the camouflage toad skin covering their bodies kept falling off, and their true forms were exposed. Only a beautiful head was left hanging in the air. With soft and thick fleshy tentacles as a connection, the head hung on the heads of the ugly toads. When the toads were hunting, they would expose the fleshy tentacles human head to the surface of the water. Combined with the dense humidity around and the quiet lake surface, it disguised a seductive scene of a beauty playing in the water. Since they were exposed, hundreds of toads swimming in the lake revealed their ferocious appearance. Squeak, 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 arms full of pustules and mucus stretched out from the toads' mouths. The palms intertwined and rubbed, causing chaos magic to form between the swollen palms. At the same time, the beautiful head hanging on the heads of the toads to trap food was also disassembled into a highly toxic pustular tentacle and shot straight to the knights on the lakeside. Shield and enchantment! The commander of the company shouted loudly. The physical knights, who cultivated in the direction of defense, were the first to stand at the forefront, blocking in front of them with their shields and opening the corresponding defensive field. At the same time, the magic knights in the company also opened the enchantment one after another. Demps formed a unique water curtain in the blink of an eye, enveloping the team. Han Dong stared at the scene in front of him and seemed to have no intention of making a move. He just evaluated in a low voice. I didn't expect that the toad path corresponds to the toad's forces. A combination of chaos magic and tentacles? Then they hide their bodies in the lake. Under the premise of not being able to figure out the lake, the knights don't dare to easily go into the lake to attack these despicable toad. How will Captain Dark Eye deal with it? The chaos magic released by the toads looked like a ball of flesh. When it was about 5 meters away from the knights, the ball of flesh distorted. Terrifying black pustules protruded on the surface of the ball of flesh and exploded in advance. Boom, boom, boom. The impact of the explosion caused the chaotic mucus contained in the ball of flesh to splatter everywhere. The corrosive explosion destroyed the front line of defense to a certain extent, revealing a gap. The pustular tentacles that shot over took advantage of this gap and drilled into the inner part of the knights, wantonly attacking, spreading poison, and sowing toad eggs. At the same time, because of the explosion, a large amount of dust was raised on the shore. The knights became invisible, and the specific situation was unknown. Just as the toads in the lake were about to launch a second round of chaos attacks, whoosh! More than 10 arrows shot out from the dust and hit the head of the toads. They only pierced the skin slightly and didn't cause any substantial damage. However, in the next second, the arrow hit its target. A group of assassins, wandering in the shadows, separated from the shadows of the arrows. It was the assassins, led by Dark Eye Macefield, who belonged to the Black Rose Knights and had the identity of the Night Watchers, who carried out a frontal assassination in this way. They took out a black short sword and pierced through the head of the toads. They killed the enemy in one move. When the toads died, with light and precise steps, they used the toads' heads that floated out of the water as a springboard to jump between different toads and carry out a super-fast joint assassination. For a moment, the attention of these toads was attracted by the shadow assassins. Taking advantage of such an opportunity, the shore of the lake was already full of knights with long-range attack abilities. Most of them didn't use magic, but took out the mechanical rifles issued by the Steam City. It only needed to consume a very small amount of energy to drive a rifle with a steam power source. It had the characteristics of high precision and high strength. It could switch between sniping and continuous shooting mode. The cartridge was loaded with the copper bullets that the hybrid demons hated the most. Fire. With the continuous sound of gunshots, layers of filthy dark body fluids gradually covered the entire lake. Chapter 848. Times were changing. Destiny Realm was indeed the only pillar that humans relied on to survive in such a doomsday, and even to fight against the hybrid demons. But they could not rely on Destiny. All the resources that could be used to fight against the hybrid demons, even the aberrated living creatures and chaotic materials outside the city, could be used by humans. At the same time, with the platform of Destiny, the development of science and technology was promoted to the greatest extent. Although the entropy in different Destiny worlds was different, the technology tree was different, and there was a technological isolation. But the Knights could exchange a large number of scientific research materials with points, and get a technological blueprint of the high-tech era. With the steam technology developed by the Sacred City as the foundation and the high-tech technology of the Destiny world as the branches, they could create a technology tree that belonged to the Sacred City. They could develop military weapons that could threaten the hybrid demons. The power armor prepared by the Steam City for all the members of the expeditionary force was the combination of human wisdom and Destiny platform. Similarly, more than 200 years of dissection, analysis and research on the hybrid demon body. In addition to copper, the hybrid demon cells showed strong rejection of metal atoms. They also showed rejection, restriction, suppression, regeneration and even cell annihilation to the holy light, mithril and patterns recorded on the ancient stone tablet. 20 years ago, the Steam Knights Vice-Captain Congreve Newton, in the name of the Machinery Faith, submitted a military research project to the Parliament in an attempt to integrate all the things that could restrain the hybrid demons into metal machinery. Several years passed. A batch of copper bullets with the Church's seal on the surface of the bullet case was distributed free of charge to the knights who could use guns. They received excellent returns in a short period of time. The bullets showed excellent lethality to the hybrid demons below the mature body stage. The bullets that successfully hit the target could effectively inhibit regeneration and cause damage at the cellular level. Especially in group battles, this way of fighting could save physical strength, and they could kill a large number of low-level demons and suppress low-level hybrid demons with firearms alone. Wind Knights even established a secret contact with Mr. Newton in private. They were willing to pay a high price and even provide some shooting knights to rush to the Steam City for actual combat practice, trying to order a large number of ammunition. If possible, they also hoped that the Machinery Faith could make some more efficient and powerful bullets to deal with high-level hybrid demons under special circumstances. That was it. Machinery Faith's copper bullets began to be mass-produced and military workshops were set up in the Steam City. These bullets were slowly used in various investigation missions and small-scale expeditions. In order to welcome the arrival of the Great Expedition, Congreve Newton took the initiative to apply for a batch of funds from his sugar daddy. He produced a large number of copper bullets and provided them to the expeditionary army for free. Many of the knights who had benefited from it had a different kind of respect for Mr. Newton. The battle on the lake had come to an end. Relying on a shadow assassin to launch a surprise attack and attract the enemy's attention as much as possible, he then used the assassin's heart to find out the weakness of the toads and sent it back to the knights at the lakeside. Using the dust raised by the explosion as cover, the knights who were proficient in firearms locked onto the weaknesses of all the toads with precision aiming instruments. Tongues of flame spewed out. Within 10 seconds, all the monster toads in the lake were killed. This bullet, is it a product of the machinery faith? Mr. Newton had really spent a lot of effort on the copper coating, the engravings of the secret text, and the high-concentration holy water at the core of the cartridge. This kind of thing could probably deal with low-level evils and wild beasts with a single shot. Even newborn hybrid demons would be injured. However, this lake was probably just a test for the toad. Through hundreds of wild beasts that were not even hybrid demons, they used the lake as a cover to test the strength of the knights. Next, the real thing should be revealed. Just as Han Dong thought, hundreds of toads were killed. A whirlpool slowly appeared in the center of the lake, and the lake water kept flowing into the depth. As the lake water receded, the entire lake evolved into a spiral staircase that extended into the depths of the ruins. It seemed to be the nest of the toads. Since the mission of the knights was to win the battle, there was no reason to retreat. Under the singing and playing of minstrel Meredith, all the knights maintained a high mental state and went deeper into the ruins along the spiral staircase. The deeper they went, the stronger the physical reaction. In addition to some herpes growing on the surface of the knights' bodies, some of them also had toad skin structures. A few of them even had a few tufts of black hair growing on their skin. Han Dong also turned off magic eye during the whole process and secretly thought of a plan. A different world. The staircase at the bottom of the lake led the knights to the depths of the underground, corresponding to a dark and humid giant cave. Torches couldn't be lit here at all. Once they were taken out, they would be soaked. Fortunately, the power armor rooms were equipped with lighting devices. Some knights who were proficient in holy light and fire also lit themselves up to illuminate the cave at the bottom of the lake. It was similar to a natural karst cave, but there were a large number of circular protruding structures between the rock layers, similar to the skin of a toad. What is this building? A strange and huge stone building was located about 100 meters in front of the knights. From the current perspective of the knights, they could only see the front door of the building. The door alone was dozens of meters high, and the whole building was completely attached to the cave. A stone toad was set up on both sides of the door. Toad Palace? Han Dong interpreted the high-level text imprinted on the base of the stone toad. We should be in the front yard of the Toad Palace. The grotto was essentially the Toad Palace, which was the territory of the medium title deed. The scale of the interior of the palace should be frighteningly large. The battle might be different from the large-scale battle imagined, and it would evolve into many small-scale conflicts within the palace. I don't know how many toads are hiding inside. Thinking of this, Han Dong's left palm slowly overflowed the black sand of death, and the sand wrapped the moving deed Scarlet Manor. According to the method described by Scarlet Count, it was to verify if the title deed could be swallowed. Buzz. The title deed trembled slightly. Count, didn't you say that only the title deed of the same type can be swallowed? This toad's mid-level title deed was built in a cave at the bottom of the lake. The humidity was extremely high and it existed in the form of a palace. It was completely different from the Scarlet Manor. Why is there still a reaction? Count in the body was also confused. Strange it shouldn't be. How can this Count's manor be connected to this damp, dirty, and unartistic toad territory? Is it because the inside of the palace is different? Let's not talk about this first. Let me ask you, can it be swallowed? If there is such a resonance, it means that there is a homology between the titles. It can definitely be swallowed, but then there is no problem. Hey, don't mess around. Didn't you see the Bufo secretly observing all of this? Forget about the rats in Perugia. You guys caught their weakness and won by chance. The Bufo is not an atavistic body. Even the mythical body is not worth mentioning in front of it. This count doesn't want to be turned into a breeding body for its larvae. I am also very scared. Don't worry. If I am not sure, I will not start a war. Even if you are sure, you can't. This count will never participate. Chapter 849. Medium-sized title deed could easily cover a small to medium-sized human city. It could even use the ability of the title deed to set up layers in the title deed area. For example, Perugia City was divided into an artistic surface layer, a dirty inner layer, and a garbage dump. There were 3 different spatial layers, separated by a unique gray matter and the spatial restriction of the title deed. If one could not find the exit, even if one was proficient in spatial ability, one would not be able to forcefully cross over. Even if Knight Charlie could kill a bunch of mantis demons, he would not be able to break through the spatial gray matter. Toad Palace. This group of toads was related to space devouring. There were a large number of toad god statues in the wetland that could cover space. The big toad in the lake could also swallow the knights into an independent space. This meant that the children, worshippers, and derivative life of the Bufo all had a certain spatial characteristic. Moreover, according to Demp's speculation, this lord might also have a chaos treasure that could control space. Toad Palace was probably more complicated than Perugia City. The 300 knights under the lead of Dark Eye Macefield approached the Toad Palace. Rumble. There was no need to push the door or trigger any mechanism. As if sensing the arrival of the guests, the door of the Toad Palace automatically opened inwards. The floor of the hall was a giant black crystal without any flaws. It was the size of the battle arena. There were candlesticks filled with toad oil every 5 meters on the walls of the hall. The warm yellow light illuminated the hall. The most noteworthy thing was a giant toad statue that was located deep in the hall. The bulge on the toad's head was represented by a large number of precious gems. The eyeball was made of the deepest black diamond. There were a large number of tumor-like lumps on the surface of the swollen, fat giant body. Toad oil kept flowing out. There was a pair of bat wings on its back that could not support its huge body. Its left hand held a small mountain of skulls, and its right hand held a strange magic wand. When staring at this toad statue, it could cause the toad oil to enter the brain, causing the toad curse that was difficult to remove. The experienced knights immediately adjusted the goggles to the highest filtering mode, using non-visual perception to observe the surrounding situation as much as possible. This is Han Dong mixed in with the team and peeked at the statue. It couldn't be matched with the toad ancestor that he had seen by accident. That existence that was covered in black hair was several times larger than this statue even in terms of size. At this time, Dempsey's fingers landed on Han Dong's cervical spine, giving him a light massage and nerve stimulation, causing the secondary nerves to automatically lower Han Dong's head, indicating that he should not stare at the statue for too long. You've already been affected by them, Bufo. Even if you have a head to protect you, you still have to be careful. Your vomiting symptoms earlier were an ominous sign. The accumulation of invisible influences may cause you to fall into the toad abyss. This is indeed a statue of the king. It is a Bufo created by the believers through thinking. This is beautifying? At the very least, it can express a certain attitude in the form of a statue, right? Even your magic eye would have a hard time seeing a real Bufo, right? It was already difficult to see the twisted hair on its body, not to mention the indescribable toad body through the hair. Besides, according to the information provided by Mother, then Bufo has at least 2 incarnations. What you see is only one of them, and the other one may look like this. Compared to the other old kings, this image is already very beautiful. My God, Demps, you have this kind of taste? Don't use the narrow human aesthetic to judge these ancient creatures with primitive beauty. Of course, as a human, I can't accept it. But, if giving a massage to the Bufo can give me the opportunity to observe the wall, I won't be picky. Wow. So you are this kind of person? Han Dong glanced at the swollen statue that was constantly oozing out oil, and had to give Demps a thumbs up. This was much better than Ollie. However, Demps's words also made Han Dong interested. By the way, what is the observation of wall? This is the characteristic of the toad demon. Just like blood wine. However, the observation of wall is more special and suitable for any race, and it doesn't have any side effects. The toad clothes. Peeled off from the purebred toad demon with atavistic body and above can be sold for a very high price outside the city. Toad clothes? So that's what it means? Han Dong recalled the dark cave his consciousness arrived at when he opened the magic eye. The hundreds of meters high rock walls were perfectly fitted with a kind of black toad skin. The protrusions of the rock and the dots of the toad skin formed a strange picture. Han Dong even saw a door on the surface of the rock wall, a door that led to the truth. That's right, the descendants mixed with the blood of the Bufo will shed their skin after a period of time. I remember that it is measured in years. This toad clothes contains the truth of the universe that the toad demon has comprehended in the past few years and decade. The protrusions and lines on the surface of the toad skin are the records of these comprehensions. The shed toad clothes will automatically stick to the rock wall, forming a kind of wall that can help others comprehend the truth. The toad clothes belong to different people, so the comprehension of the truth it gives is also different. The toad clothes of the mythical body are extremely valuable and can even help us break through. If it's the toad clothes shed by the Bufo, Demps was also surprised. You saw it when you connected? Yes, the black wall with the characteristic of moving, I saw a door on it. When talking about this, Demps became very serious, and the strength of his fingers massaged also increased. He talked about a very important matter. Referring to the comprehensive military strength of Perugia City, if the Land War is launched, can you provide the same military strength? Demps, didn't you say that the Bufo is a big problem? You still want to start a war? The Land War is absolutely protected by the rules, and the specific level is much higher than the battle book, signed by the knights and the hybrid demons. As long as we find the right opportunity to launch the Land War, even the Bufo can't interfere. After the war, if the Bufo wants to kill us at all costs, even if Han Dong can't do it, Mother will come to help. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Even if there were some atavistic physiques that had the blood of the toad ancestor flowing in their veins, they would not be able to obtain the opportunity to observe the wall from the toad ancestor before they made a huge contribution. In short, if you find the right opportunity to start a war, I'll support you. At that time, tell Abel and Mia in advance and let them be prepared. Okay. Just when the two were talking for a while, led by Minstrel Meredith, with various long-range detection methods provided by the knights, they had completed the search of the Toad Palace Hall. There was no danger. As the knights entered, the 100-ton gate of the Toad Palace suddenly closed, and at the same time, black hair grew on the stone gate. Some kind of seal that couldn't be broken sealed everyone inside. If they wanted to go out, they had to win the battle in the Toad Palace area. Just when all the armed soldiers were staring at every corner of the Toad Palace, preparing to deal with the Toad hybrid demons that might come out from the shadows. The hall was still very quiet, and there wasn't even a trace of hybrid demon aura. It was as if the owner of the Toad Palace wanted to play a game with the knights. Chapter 850. The toad oil candlelight illuminated the hall. The various gems embedded in the head of the Bufo statue actively reflected the candlelight in the direction of the candlelight. A toad-like woman was reflected in the center of the hall. 1. A spotted toad was lying on top of the woman's head. It exhaled a kind of cold poisonous gas as it breathed. 2. Damp and curly hair fell in front of her, covering more than 90% of her face. Only the outline of an oval face was faintly discernible, with a little charm. 3. Her graceful body was wrapped in thin transparent silk clothes. It was faintly discernible as it floated in the candlelight. 4. The lower half of her body was soaked in a pond. The pond and the ripples were also formed by the reflection of the gems. A voice that imitated the human language came from all around Toad Palace. Human knights who came from afar, I would like to express my respect for your courage to go to Toad Palace. I'm the owner of Toad Palace, Meritus. I'm very happy to meet you here. There seems to be some very special knights among you. The pale yellow eyeball hidden in the hair moved quickly, searching for some knights who emitted a unique aura. I'm very opposed to using a rough and chaotic way to conduct the so-called war. For you who came from afar, I specially set up a very interesting war mode. I'll sign a battle book, supplementary treaty with you here. As she spoke, a piece of parchment slipped out from the mouth of the Bufo statue. It was a supplementary note to the battle book. At the same time, a total of 32 stone doors opened on the surrounding walls, leading to different areas of Toad Palace. Supplementary treaty. The battle in Landdeed Toad Palace will be further limited. The war will be divided into 32 different areas. 1. Ensure that the strength of the hybrid demons in different areas does not differ by more than 10%. The strength index is evaluated by the world's rules. 2. The teams that won the battle in different areas can go to the nearest battle area through the shortcut passage. 3. When one side's forces are completely destroyed, the battle will end. Of course, you also have the right to choose not to sign the supplementary treaty and destroy my palace in the most barbaric way. As the Lord here, I naturally have to remind you out of kindness. If you recklessly destroy the palace and cause a certain existence to be awakened, I won't be responsible. Once you sign the supplementary treaty, you will also be protected by the world's rules. Everything will be carried out fair and just. The 32 different small battle areas that lead to Toad Palace will open at the same time. The reflection of light ended. Toad Girl's projection disappeared. The decision was left to Dark Eye Macefield. These mutated toads were cunning by nature, which could be seen from the various traps they had set up in the wetlands. Currently, the Overlord had set up a campaign that was similar to a game. He wanted to further divide the Night Company into 32 small teams and go deep into different regions to complete the war in the form of small-scale battles. What needed to be made clear was, what was the purpose of the temporary treaty? Did he deliberately split up the Night Regiment and lead the different teams to the various trap areas in Toad Palace? Or were they trying to split up their teams to deal with someone individually? The probability of it being a trap is very high. However, if we don't accept this kind of treaty, we will also be restricted here. We can only use the method of forceful destruction to reach different areas of Toad Palace. This was the territory of the hybrid demons, and forcefully destroying it would trigger traps. At the same time, there were also some unknown hidden dangers. There aren't enough clues, so I can't make a judgment. In that case, let's vote on whether to accept the temporary treaty or not. The cold and damp air in Toad Palace was constantly weakening the condition of the knights. The voting process ended in a short period of time. There were a total of 302 knights who went to Toad Palace. Among them, 180 agreed to go to different areas in the form of small teams according to the supplementary treaty. There were a total of 32 combat areas, which meant that the size of a team was about 8 to 10 people. The distribution of teams was also as equal in strength as possible. Han Dong was the only level 2 knight in his team. The other 3 were only level 1 knights, which was the weakest team. At the same time, Abel was a candidate for the leader of the Behemoth Knight Regiment, and Han Dong was also a candidate for the Parliament. Such important young knights must be safe. According to the method of equal in strength, Dark Eye Macefield planned to bring a few elite assassins and form a joint team with Han Dong and the others. At this moment, Han Dong, who looked like a salted fish, gave his opinion. Captain Macefield, there is actually no need to equal in strength. The supplementary rules here are different from the rules of the general battle. The supplementary treaty mentioned that the team that wins in a certain area can immediately provide support to the area where the other team is located through this shortcut. I suggest that Captain Macefield bring a few elite knights who can quickly kill the enemy. Quickly clear the target area and then help the other teams through this shortcut. It is similar to a snowball method to expand our advantage. The one-eyed crippled Dark Eye stared at Han Dong. The plan is feasible, but you may die. Let Knight Meredith form a team with us. As long as we can hold on until your support arrives, it will be considered a victory. Equal distribution always feels like we will fall into the enemy's trap. Although Han Dong's words made sense in terms of personal value, Han Dong and Abel were the important pillars of the holy city. If they died here, Dark Eye would have to bear a huge responsibility. At this moment, Dark Eye Macefield suddenly used an ability. He moved the eye patch slightly and revealed the hidden dark eye. It was a dark eyeball that had been tortured by the curse, dried up and full of cracks. It was attached with a curse ability from the Destiny realm. Assassin's Cursed Eye. For targets whose level is equal to or lower than the host, it can see through the opponent's weakness. All subsequent attacks will automatically be directed towards the weakness. High-level targets require a certain amount of time to lock on. When Dark Eye opened, the weaknesses of most of the knights in the hall were seen clearly. Only Han Dong, who looked directly at him, did not reveal any weaknesses. Or rather, it was difficult for Dark Eye to see through him. The only special points that could be seen were only 2. The slightly rotating black vortex torso. The mysterious head shrouded in the gray haze. Okay, Dark Eye secretly smiled and accepted Han Dong's suggestion. Separating a powerful team alone was indeed more suitable for the rules of Toad Palace. It was also because of Han Dong's suggestion. Minstrel Meredith, who had brown curly hair and was dressed in light blue and green, approached with his unique lute on his back. Meredith was also a very special knight. He seemed to be able to chat with many people in the expeditionary army, but he did not belong to any team and acted alone. He recited poems, told interesting stories, or sang a pleasant tune among different knight groups. Just as Meredith arrived, a knight with a broad body and a primitive tribal pattern on his face also came one after another. He held a battle axe with lightning dancing in his hand, and there were some small ancient totems hanging on the leather at his waist. Teacher Asama. Abel, I have to take care of your safety. If anything happens to you, the commander will probably slap me to death. The person who came was Abel's daily combat training teacher, a member of the shaman faction in the Behemoth Knights, Asama Thundercaller. As for Asama's teammates, the reason was simple. As knights of the older generation, they had undergone combat training with Abel. In the eyes of this group of beast knights, Abel was not a newcomer. Instead, he was a ferocious beast that even they were a little afraid of when he went crazy. As for Nicholas, who was stronger than Abel and won first place in the Knight Conference, his strength was naturally needless to say. The sharp sense of smell of a beast allowed Knight Asama to smell a sense of danger from Nicholas. Coupled with this mysterious bard, the strength of this team was not weak at all. Chapter 851. The teams were assigned. They opened their respective stone doors and entered the corresponding Toad Palace. In the blink of an eye, the hall returned to its original state. There were no stone doors between the walls. Or it could be said that these 32 passages were created in a different way. Through the chaos treasure given to Meritus by the Bufo, the Stone of Ectema. The purpose was to completely separate the knight regiment. What awaited the different knight squads was to fall into Meritus's meticulously arranged trap. Of course, even if they didn't accept the additional treaty, they would still fall into the trap if they forcefully destroyed Toad Palace. There was another reason for the temporary treaty to separate the Knight Company. At this time, amidst the pus flowing out of the Toad statue, Meritus, who was holding a pure emerald, slowly emerged. A swollen tongue full of pustules and small holes stuck out from the hair covering her face, licking her damp curly hair. The most troublesome assassin is unexpectedly not following the young knight. This is very easy to deal with. Although the next knight is also troublesome, it isn't the worst situation. First, I will absorb a few weak knights to improve my physical condition. Then, I'll find an opportunity to get rid of all the knights around this brat, and capture him alive and bring him to the Lord. If he really is related to the Book of Necromancy, I'll definitely receive an unprecedented favor by presenting him with such a great gift. I will be very close to becoming a legend. In the passage lit by the toad oil, Knight Asimo, who had a strong physique and almost occupied the entire passage, walked at the front. Abel followed closely behind this shaman priest. The two often exchanged a few words and seemed to have a good relationship. Asimo Thundercaller was born as a shaman priest because of his family's origin. Before entering the Destiny space, he already knew some basic shaman witchcraft. He could summon thunder and lightning by chanting incantations under certain circumstances. During the apprentice knight period, he majored in control. Asama had perfectly combined the attributes of the shaman priest and the wild beast, wielding the bear soul and cultivating a body comparable to that of a giant bear. He had combined the most primitive power of the shaman priest's heavenly lightning with his own fighting style. He was a hot-tempered shaman warrior. Of course, it was related to thunder and lightning. From time to time, Asimo would also glance at Demps, who was in the middle of the group. It was as if he could sense a unique source of lightning in Demps's body. Mia naturally followed Han Dong closely. Even with the addition of two powerful knights, in Mia's eyes, Han Dong was still the most reliable. All kinds of bones were already in his hands, ready to release bone spells to protect himself at any time. Han Dong, on the other hand, seemed to be at ease. Taking advantage of the free time in the passage, he tried to have an in-depth conversation with the bard whom he had never met before. In the battle at the lakeside, Han Dong had made up his mind to pull this senior into his plan. I'm not floating, the world spins, I read, my history is like a night watchman. Joy and mystery have an incomprehensible attraction. The poetic singing resounded in the tunnel, making everyone feel refreshed, and at the same time, they could use the music to investigate the tunnel. Thank you, Senior Meredith. Meredith always had a kind smile on her face. Nicholas, since you're someone valued by Commander Hugo, even if you didn't say anything, I would still do my best to protect you. However, you seem to be deliberately hiding something. I don't know if it's just my imagination. Han Dong was also shocked by Meredith's words. Logically speaking, from Han Dong's subjective point of view, he played the role of a standard salted fish the whole time, and did not show any excessive desire. It should be your imagination, Senior. I just want to preserve my strength, so that I won't be a burden in a critical moment, so I didn't do anything before entering Toad Palace. Meredith did not answer and continued to hum. It was an unusually long passage. Han Dong and his group walked in the passage for more than 5 hours. He even suspected that small-scale conflicts had broken out in other areas before he finally saw the end. Finally, where does such a long passage lead to? When he pushed open the cold iron door at the end of the passage, it was neither a secret room in Toad Palace nor the Lord's bedroom. Backyard, it was a square-shaped backyard area. Moreover, Toad Palace, which was built in a cave at the bottom of the lake, should be in a sealed state at the top. However, the roof of the backyard corresponded to the sky, and it was not some kind of illusory stone, but the real sky. It also meant that the space of the entire Toad Palace had already shown a chaotic state under the blessing of the title deed and the chaotic treasure. In the backyard, which was half the size of a football field, there were 4 strange statues in each corner. Strangely, the statues had almost no connection with toads in terms of appearance. They corresponded to 1. The serpent man disciple with a hook in his hand. 2. A black group with an indefinite form, both with an obsidian shell and a pus structure. 3. A giant savage with a body full of pustules, wearing a snakeskin coat and holding a toad hammer. 4. A dark bat with a face full of fangs and a beady eyeball on its wings. They did not seem to be completely people of Toad Palace, but were related to the Bufo for some reason. They were the mantis demons guarding this place. Even if they were still in the form of stone statues, they still emitted an aura similar to a mature form mantis demon. Judging from the aura, each of their attributes were different. However, compared to these mantis demon stone statues, Han Dong's attention was drawn deeper. Through layers of moisture, he saw the entrance of a cave blocked by a boulder with inscriptions. Traces of extreme Yin aura were constantly leaking out through the cracks in the stone. As expected, because of the problem with the little magic eye, part of the target of the Bufo has changed to me. The cave behind the boulder should belong to the area outside the battle. If my guess is correct, it corresponds to the nest where the toad incarnate lives. Han Dong hurriedly looked at Demps in front of him and communicated with his eyes. After getting Demps's convinced look, Han Dong also felt relieved. If he was really found by the Bufo, even if Han Dong's mark was ineffective, Demps still had the mother, hidden in the dark as a safety card. At this moment, gurgle gurgle, the lawn area in the center of the backyard turned into a pool of water. A humanoid life form stepped on a toad. To be precise, its lower body was merged with the toad, and its upper body was covered in a cloak. This person was the messenger who signed the battle book with the expeditionary army at the lake. When this messenger appeared, the humidity in the backyard immediately increased. It directly caused the stones on the surface of the stone statue to disintegrate layer by layer, revealing the mantis demons hidden inside. A total of 5 mature mantis demons, if measured by the strength of the Scarlet Count, was equivalent to fighting 5 Scarlet Counts at the same time, and it was in a humid environment that was advantageous to the other party. If the other night squads came to the backyard, they would probably be in trouble. Shaman Asimo, who was standing at the front, didn't look too good. He used bandages to wrap his palm and axe handle to prevent it from falling out of his hand in the following battle. 5 and 2 of them have already shown signs of atavism. Should we fight separately or work together? Han Dong immediately gave his opinion. We are not familiar with the 2 seniors, so it's not easy to cooperate. This group of mantis demons seems to have lived together for hundreds of years. It's better to separate. Well, choose the target. Chapter 852. When he saw the 4 statues in the backyard area, Scarlet Count was also surprised. In terms of the aura emitted by these statues, 2 of them were stronger than him. Count, who had connections with multiple forces, immediately knew what these stone statues in the backyard belonged to. Yatha's snake people, Nkei's invisible son, the Wormies of the Hyperborea. There was even a nightmare from Dreamlands. 2 of them were related to the Bufo, but the other 2 were directly subordinate to other old kings. Moreover, the status of the mature hybrid demons was not low. They were actually turned into stone statues and became the watchmen here. Sure enough, the attraction of wall viewing was too great. This count once wanted to try and see if he could make a connection with the buffo. But this group of toads was extremely cunning, and there was no chance to take advantage of it. According to this count's information, other races basically had no chance to get the chance to wall viewing. Anyone who was bewitched by the toads and went to watch the wall with a fluke mentality would never return. But, Nicholas, if you can win the land deed war, everything here will belong to you. The cavern below was no exception, so there was no danger to speak of. Maybe this count can really let this count see what the holy land of the toads is like and see what there is to see on the wall. Didn't you say that you would rather die than participate in the battle? The count immediately found a reason to give himself a way out. The new king boy is very reasonable. If there is a cave wall left behind by the toad ancestor here, with your identity as a messenger and the help of the boy's backer, it will be easy to find. The buffo may not dare to touch you. As long as you can win the battle, this area will belong to you. If you find the right opportunity to fight, this count will still consider participating in the battle and help you win. If you continue to talk, then don't expect me to help. Han Dong was too lazy to argue and changed the topic to the important terms that Count had just given. By the way, Count, are the names of the places mentioned in the book? Why haven't I heard of it before? Don't tell me that when we, the hybrid demons, wake up from our dreams and reclaim our world, we will continue to call you lowly humans by the same old names? What a fool! Moreover, it wasn't just the name that had changed. The world, in your human mind, has completely changed because of the appearance of the old king and his kin. Large-scale changes in the terrain, the arrival of alternate space domains, and some old kings whose bodies could reach the size of a country were themselves continents. Your great expedition has only just begun. You should be able to feel the brand new world we have created in the following journey. Although Han Dong was not the kind of person who cared much about what other people said, when he heard Count's blabbering, he was very impatient in his heart and directly blocked his consciousness. However, the information given by Count was somewhat useful, and it was more convenient for the following battle arrangements. The messenger of Toad Palace, that activated the stone statue and the black substance of indefinite form, have already given rise to some atavistic characteristics. The other three are mature bodies that are about the same level as Count. Let's let them choose first. Bear Shaman Asimo directly chose the invisible child. That was the most difficult to deal with. This kind of tar-like life form that came from the dark abyss contained an extremely sturdy obsidian shell. It was indefinite and had many characteristics. However, the primitive lightning that the shaman tribe possessed was also very effective against this kind of dark life form. As for Minstrel Meredith, she did not look at any of the stone statues throughout the entire process. Her eyes were fixed on the center of the backyard the entire time until it turned into a pool and the messenger of Toad Palace floated up. Her target had been identified from the beginning. Abel, you deal with the Womi. It's a pity that Sister Wunli isn't here, otherwise, you should be able to suppress them quickly if you work together. Womi? That giant savage? No problem. I can do it alone. At first glance, the savage was a hybrid demon that leaned towards brute force, which suited Abel's taste perfectly. After instructing Abel, there were only two choices left. Demps, what do you choose? Leave the Nightcrawler to me. There are differences between the life forms of the Dreamlands and the hybrid demons in the real world. My finger can ignore certain rules, but it can touch the Dreamland thread. Only I can deal with this thing. Demps also said the professional terms in one go. Obviously, he was very clear about the species classification of these life forms. Since that was the case, the division of labor was over. Han Dong placed one hand on Mia's shoulder and leaned his whole body on it. He pointed at the statue of the Naga priest. The latter blushed at this action, but she immediately realized that it was the aura of a tool. Mia, the last remaining Naga priest, will be dealt with by us. You will be in charge of the battle, and I will provide some support from behind. Huh? Why did you say my line? Mia had already thought about it. She was prepared to use all kinds of witchcraft to cover for Han Dong. Under the appropriate circumstances, she would go forward with Han Dong to kill the target. Under the guidance of Dempsa's mother, you have completed the full activation of the insect adherent. The curse on your body has turned into an absolute power. I also brought you the most primitive ancient witchcraft from the mystic sect of 3 witches from Miss Jane. I believe that Mia has already walked a certain distance on the road to the Hidden Kingdom. The current situation is just a low-level battle in the big expedition. If you can't even do this, I will be very disappointed, Mia. I'm not afraid of the hybrid demons. It's just that I have never seen this kind of snake before. I will support you in the dark. Show me what you can do. Also, the reason why I am supporting you in the dark is because someone needs to sense and investigate the situation in the other areas of the backyard. If there are any unexpected situations in the battle, we must be able to respond in time. I know. I said I won't drag you down. Mia then took out the medicine that she had prepared in advance and injected it into her body. Mixed witchcraft potion. Increases the effect of witchcraft and suppresses the side effects of witchcraft. Activate 1 ritual. The secret runes engraved in Mia's internal organs were activated by Solar's witchcraft fire dagger. Some kind of door that connected to the holy kingdom of witchcraft, the Hidden Kingdom, was slightly opened. Mia could accept the power from this kingdom to a certain extent. At the same time, she also put on the power armor. The light armor made of flexible metal could perfectly fit the spider legs that grew out of Mia's back. Through the casting inscription and magic circuit extension, engraved in the flexible metal, the spellcasting that originally required both hands could be done by the spider legs. Clusters of witchcraft energy began to condense on the surface of the spider legs. At the same time, the demon sword katana from Ghost Stories was also in Mia's hand. A pale female ghost in white clothes also floated in the backyard. The opponent was a mature hybrid demon. In terms of strength, it often required a whole night squad to deal with it. Mia couldn't hold back any of her strength. She had to go all out from the beginning. Staring at the Japanese female ghost, katana floating in the courtyard, Han Dong's thoughts were slightly affected. I don't know how Miss Chun-Li is in the Destiny realm. I should get her out as soon as possible. Thinking of this, with a series of crow feathers falling, Soren held the black magic staff in his left hand. Perhaps it was because of the series of experiences in the Chaos Death prison that the undead priest's arm grew. When Han Dong held the magic staff and showed the posture of death, a black jackal head with intricate decorations faintly appeared behind him. Chapter 853. Mythical Level Contact? Just as Han Dong took out his staff, the raven, and unleashed the power of death, the raven's aura changed. Meredith, who had just taken out the lute, immediately turned back and saw the jackal head virtual image that appeared behind Han Dong. Meredith couldn't help but smile when she saw this scene. After all, in the knowledge of ordinary knights, mature body definitely needed a small team of ordinary knights to deal with. But with Han Dong, who had mythical level contact, and the same pollution-free physique as Captain Hugo, Meredith was not worried about anything. She could deal with the target he had locked on with ease, the Toad Palace messenger whose lower body was merged with a toad. A serenade was played. Combined with the current night environment, the elegant and quiet sound of the lute immediately acted on the Toad Palace messenger. Thin catgut threads from Godpan shot out. Undefendable and irresistible. The catgut threads were connected to the messenger's head. A consciousness visible to the naked eye was directly pulled into the lute. Of course, things were not that simple. The lute also overflowed a lot of clear water on the surface of the lute, and a toad skin structure appeared on the surface. Obviously, such equipment alone was not enough to seal the messenger. Meredith sat down cross-legged and continued to play the tune. Every time the strings were plucked, an invisible barrier formed around his body. When the shield was completely formed, Meredith's consciousness also entered the lute to kill the hybrid demon in a battle of consciousness. The originally cruel battle of life and death was forcibly transformed into an elegant solo by Meredith. Compared to the elegant battle of this one, the battle of another high-level knight was not so quiet. Bear-shaped shaman, Asimo, the giant bear-like body jumped up, and his eyes locked on the invisible child covered with an obsidian shell and a tar body. Even if the surface of this shapeless object had reflected some atavistic lines, and the whole body exuded an ancient and dangerous aura, Asimo was not afraid at all. He did not immediately wave the giant axe with thunder and lightning. Instead, he reached out and touched the intricate totem hanging on his waist. On the surface of the totem, there was a male god with goat horns. Both of his hands were holding the most primitive thunder and lightning. Asama chanted a primitive incantation and threw out the totem in his hand. During the flight, the totem, which was originally only the size of a palm, expanded to 3 meters in size. Boom! Instead of crashing into the target, it took root vertically in the ground. At the same time, a pure bolt of lightning descended from the sky and struck the totem. Lightning surged on the surface of the totem, completely activated. Totem was an Aeoli ability unique to shamans. Totems could establish a connection with the gods worshipped by the shaman priests. Thus, in the form of totems, they could enhance the effect of their own domain. As long as they were within the range of totems, they would enjoy the blessing of totems. Yurdo's Storm Shepherd's Totem effect. 1. Increases lightning affinity of all allies within 10 yards of the caster. When attacking at close range or from a distance, there is a certain probability of lightning strike, causing an additional 10% lightning damage to the target. There is a certain probability of burning wounds and suppressing regeneration. When attacking or casting spells, there is a certain probability of injecting lightning element into the magic core, increasing magic damage by 1% to 30%. There is a small probability, less than 5%, of increasing the current magic level. 2. Every 10 seconds, the nearest enemy will trigger lightning strike. At the same time as the totem was activated, Asama also took out the giant bear's strength and waved the giant lightning axe in his hand, slashing heavily on the target's obsidian shell. Crackle, lightning surged. The lightning strike almost lit up the entire backyard. Several cracks appeared on the invisible child's shell, and a tar-like substance gushed out, trying to fill in the cracks. Although Asama had a confident expression, the pain in his hand was real. Originally, Asama, who had stored up his strength and the blessing of the totem, had planned to attack first with a lightning strike. Although it was not a one-hit kill, it would at least cause some injuries. However, it had only cracked a part of the shell, and the shock had caused his hand to hurt. This thing's shell really can't be hit head-on. Looks like I can't use brute force anymore. I have to find an opportunity to attack its inside. At the same time that Asama retreated, Asama's eyes lit up. The invisible child, which had looked like a sludge monster, suddenly changed its form and turned into a terrifying 4-meter-tall body. The broken obsidian and sticky substance on the surface of its body combined together, looking like a broken flesh wall. The top of its body turned into a large mouth in the shape of a lamprey and bit toward Asama. The latter smelled danger and immediately dodged. Swoosh! The area bitten by the invisible child turned into a black pit filled with mud. The water, grass, and stones that originally existed there were all assimilated by this tar-like substance. Immediately after, the invisible child's form changed again, turning into a humanoid black giant. Its arms turned into several hardened tentacles that could freely extend and shrink. It spread its arms. In the form of a pincer attack, it continuously pierced through Asama's body. What pure lightning! Shaman priests are indeed special. Although it's not a mythical level contact, it can be considered a mythical level offering. Through the totem, it's indeed lightning created by a god level. Unfortunately, its level is slightly lower. The invisible child is a creature from the dark abyss, K. It's not easy to kill it. Demps seemed to be the most relaxed. Facing the bat-like nightingale, which had the appearance of a devil and an indescribable body structure, Demps only used one move. The nightingale let out an irritating low growl and attacked head-on. A finger touched the center of the nightingale's brows and gently pushed. It directly sent the nightingale back to its hometown, a parallel universe formed purely by the subconscious and imagination, the dreamlands. Feeling the warmth of being embraced by its hometown again, the nightingale let out a cheerful and excited cry, as if it was thanking Demps. If Demps went to the so-called dreamlands in the future, he could also obtain the help of this hybrid demon. This move wasn't some kind of ability. It was a kind of connection authority that belonged to the new king, Demps. Relying on the scent of the nightingale, finding and matching the password of the dreamlands, connecting with the sixth finger, and it was done with a gentle push. After it was done, just as Demps was about to take a short break, boom! A muffled sound of impact came from the side. A black metal figure flew straight and accurately hit Demps's body. Boom! They both crashed into the wall behind them. Fortunately, Demps had the magic shield on at all times, so a simple physical impact was not a big deal. The black figure in front of Demps was Abel, wearing the power armor Black Dragon. And Abel's target, the Womi in the northern terminus, had now grown to 8 meters, 3 times the original size, and it was still growing, and its strength was still increasing. Chapter 854. Demps was well aware of Abel's strength. If he didn't compare himself to Handong, he would be considered a top-tier genius in the Holy City. He was even more talented than Commander Kai Meng back in the day. The fact that the Imperial Guard had privately extended an olive branch to Abel was proof of this. The Dragon Clan, coupled with the dire beast in Abel's body, as well as the more hard-working combat training compared to his peers. If there was a flaw, it would be that he had only experienced true fate once and was only assigned the first level of talent. If he could unlock more talents, Abel's strength would increase exponentially. In theory, with the activation of the dragon bloodline and the enhancement of the special power armor, Abel should be able to fight against the mature hybrid demon, but he was currently at a complete disadvantage. Bang! With one hit, the power armor made of black dragon iron was dented inwards. With the impact of the club, Abel flew to the other side of the backyard like a bullet and happened to crash into Demp. The two of them plunged into the wall together. Although this hit wasn't enough to take his life, his whole body was in a state of dizziness. It seemed to be the special effect of the Savage Club, used by the Wormy. Hitting the enemy would cause a long period of dizziness. However, this Wormy continued to grow. Due to the growth of his body, his speed was slightly slower, and it would take some time for him to rush over. Taking this opportunity, Demps hid between the cracks of the wall. While giving Abel a quick massage, he observed this strange Wormy. Strange, Demp's face was filled with doubt. In fact, when he came to the backyard and discovered that this inferior Wormy could reach the level of a mature hybrid demon, Demps was already very surprised. The origin of the Wormy can be traced back to the North Pole of the previous civilization. In the polar world that was cold all year round, there lived a type of primitive savages that could not connect with modern civilization. They survived in the far north with good cold resistance, but their intelligence was extremely low, even lower than some low-level primates. After that, the land of the final north was ruled by many old kings. Due to their low intelligence, it was difficult for them to even develop into basic believers. As a result, they were reduced to low-level slaves and were wantonly slaughtered. Only a small number of Wumis who had special constitutions and killed all sorts of monsters in the special Colosseum survived. The weak died while the strong survived. As a result, some of the Wormies with combat bloodlines continued to exist. However, the far north had always been in a state of turmoil. Wars between different old kings also broke out frequently. The Wormies were often sent to the front lines by the old kings. Who would have thought that he would meet a special Wormies in the inland? And they were different from the wormy people I had read about in books. Even if these savages had gone through thousands of years of survival of the fittest, they would not violate the basic laws of physics. What is this unlimited growth all about? He saw that Abel's condition had improved. Demps formed a triangle with his hands in front of him and cast a spell. Eye of Truth. It was a high-level detection spell. Coupled with the enhancement from the sixth finger, the giant barbarian's body was completely seen through. The muscle tissue in its body was like a worm, wriggling, growing, and splitting. However, this was still not enough to explain why strength could increase indefinitely. The increase in strength meant that some kind of energy was continuously increasing. Demps followed the flow of energy in the worm's muscles, looking for the source. Finally, he found the energy source at the back of the neck, which was close to the head. A piece of ellipsoidal meat that could make Demps shudder, his brain tremble, and even his throne shake slightly, was inserted in the neck area of the Wormies like a foreign object. This is origin meat, the origin meat of an ultimate ancestral god. It's actually in this inferior Wormies. No wonder it could grow to the mature stage. No wonder it could grow infinitely in battle. The Wormies that were parasitized by the origin meat are actually here. Most likely, when they were wandering in the far north, they accidentally wandered into the Bufo ruins and crossed space to come inland. Since there's such a piece of meat in its body, it must be killed quickly, or it will be quite troublesome. Abel, I'll now connect my vision to your brain. Can you see the thing at the back of its neck? Demps' sixth finger poked directly into Abel's head. What is that? Even if the blood of the dragon clan flowed in his body, even if there was a primordial ferocious beast hidden in his body. When Abel caught a glimpse of the sarcoma on the Wormy's neck, his whole body quivered. His brain, which had been slightly dazed, was now completely awake. It's very troublesome, and it's not easy to explain now. The next battle will focus on pulling out the origin meat. Just pull it out. Yes, the Wormy's unlimited growth, unlimited strength, all kinds of precise attacks, and even their mature level is inseparable from this piece of meat. Pull it out and he'll die. I'll be in charge of pulling it out. Abel, go out and attract attention. Hearing this, Abel's beast ears, which grew in his white hair, became a little loose. That blow just now had directly knocked out Abel's fighting spirit. During the time when he was sent flying and crashed into the wall, the Wormy's physique and strength were still growing. He was now 10 meters in size, and the aura of power he exuded was one level higher. If he was hit a few more times, he might really die. At this moment, scenes of the tough training in the Holy City appeared in Abel's mind. Every time during actual combat training, the sparring teacher would not hold back, and Abel had experienced all kinds of serious injuries. There was nothing to be afraid of. This was only the beginning of the great expedition. Okay, sizzle steam continued to overflow from the power armor. A special beast bone ring was worn on Abel's finger. The will of a primordial beast was awakened, and even occupied the dragon bloodline to a certain extent. Some of the dragon's scales that protruded from Abel's body were also dyed black. His body crouched on the wall. His thigh muscles and calf muscles contracted, and even his arm muscles exerted force, when the wormies were within 5 meters of him. Abel, who was crouching on the wall, exerted force with his entire body. Boom! A half-meter deep dent appeared on the wall as his legs stomped on it. He turned into a black dragon shadow and went straight for the wormy's head, preparing to hit it with a dragon. At this moment, in the hands of the wormies, the chaotic weapon that grew with him, Agama, brutal flesh, actually kept up with Abel's speed, perfectly following Abel's trajectory and swinging at him at the same time. Because of the existence of the origin meat, the wormy's brain reaction was also extraordinary. Almost at the same time as Abel kicked, he predicted the trajectory of the attack. With such a high-speed collision, if it hit, Abel might die. Just as he was about to hit, some air vortexes appeared on the surface of Abel's limbs, and the beast in his body seemed to be able to run freely between heaven and earth. He stepped on the air and changed his trajectory. Just as he passed by the heavy swing of the club and was about to hit the wormy's head, Abel's body was suddenly enveloped by a black shadow. His left hand, which had been hidden in the dark the whole time, suddenly pressed down in a gigantic posture. He slammed Abel into the ground. Boom! The backyard area shook. A large amount of dust rose from the place where the palm hit. From the beginning, the wormies did not intend to use the club to attack. He knew very well that Abel could dodge, and it was during the vacuum period when the target completed the dodge. He had already prepared his left arm and directly suppressed it. The existence of the origin meat even changed the intelligence of this low-energy life. He was not a savage at all. This wormies had even learned all the human culture, technology, and even basic habits of the modern world. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.